Welcome to Truth Sentinel, watching over the truth in the news. I'm joined by Seth, our resident host. Hi, Seth. How's things?
Oh, pretty good, Scott. Glad to be joining you today. Glad to answer any questions of any of the viewers, audience members out there. That'd be wonderful. And hopefully this is going to be a nice, informative, and kind of topical sort of show.
I hope so. Yeah, it's a bit of an experiment. We don't know what's going to happen. It depends how many people turn up, but let's give it a go. I mean, I thought we'd start off by chatting about world events, and then as a little queue builds up of people who might want to come and join us, they're welcome to. If nobody joins us, I think me and you have got plenty to talk about anyway, right?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Like I said, I got about a dozen articles, or like I told you earlier, I have about a dozen articles lined up here. Most of them are just going to be very light touches on stuff, just so we can kind of steer discussion. But at the same time, a little bit of anything that people want to get more into, we can get fully into the article, actually start really getting into the details and potentially even look up more stuff on it.
Yeah. And, you know, I know a lot of shows around the Christmas time, they have kind of light-hearted shows and they try and keep it light-hearted. But I thought, okay, yeah, some of this show could be light-hearted, but let's face it, this has been a pretty unusual year, and we're bound to come across some dark topics, and people can talk about whatever they want. We don't have to be all bouncy happy if we don't want to be. You can talk. I mean, obviously, COVID's going to come up, the elections. I thought, you know, what to expect in 2021. Either us or guests who might want to come on might want to talk about that. Any philosophical questions or comments? Any topics about past shows? So people can come on, have a quick chat, maybe 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes, as little or as much as you want. Maybe not too much, because we want to hopefully go on to the next guest. I wanted to explain a little bit about how it might work. So there are some guest instructions in the show notes about how to use StreamYard, but it's pretty easy. I think you'll agree, Seth. It's not too difficult once you click on the link, right?
It is so much easier than a lot of the other software we've used, including the Google Hangouts was a little bit sketchy on certain stuff, but this is one of the most straightforward platforms we've ever used. So definitely.
Yeah. So let me give you a few pointers before we start. So if you're going to come on, basically, you click on the link, which I've already put in the show notes, but I'll put in the chat in a second. Or actually, I might put it in after we've had a little chit chat first anyway. Basically, people can come in on there, turn off your video because it'll help with the bandwidth. Plus, it'll be more like a call-in show then as well. Plus, we don't want any people that are better looking than me or you, Seth, do we? Because that'll bring out our insecurities.
Yeah, I've got to be like the hot girl in high school hanging out with all the ugly chicks. You know, can't have that. Can't have that.
We can't have that at all. So basically, when you call in, click on the link, switch off your video. You can switch off your audio for a while if you want, and we can switch it on when we bring you in. The link will be there. If you prefer, you just want to leave a voicemail, I've also put the blogspot.com link, truthsentinel9.blogspot.com. That's in the show notes. You can just leave a voicemail message. Maybe if you do that, send me a message on the chat just so I get to go and check the email, because I have to check the email for that one. What else can I say? That's probably it. So we'll have a little bit of a chit chat, and as people want to join, you can join the queue, and I'll keep an eye. We'll keep an eye on it, and then we'll bring you in. So Seth, I had a big opening question to ask you to kick things off about the elections. I thought I'd spring a big question on you.
All right.
Okay, so I'm going to speculate a bit. Let's imagine on the 6th of Jan, when the next stage of this election process comes along, let's imagine there's an objection and amongst the Republicans, and they reject some of the results in some of the states, and then that kicks off some political process and debate. And then Trump goes on TV, explains the fraud, shows the evidence, of which there does appear to be some considerable evidence, despite what the media say. And he says, "Look, I'm going to have to do something. We can't let this happen." Invokes, say, the Insurrection Act or martial law, and says we're going to redo the elections. The military are going to help. They're not actually going to give out the vaccines. We're going to help with the election. We're going to redo some states, the election in some states. How are the American people going to take that? Is it going to go down well?
I have a feeling the general public, for the most part, is going to go along with whatever the government is going to foist upon people, regardless of whether or not we're talking from the left or to the right. I have a feeling if Trump does a lot of this stuff, that the media is going to stay exactly on course like they have thus far, and he's going to be now Orange Man doubly bad if that's the case. However, I think a lot of my conservative, and I'd say that in air quotes, because unfortunately a lot of my conservative friends have tended to become a little bit more corporatist as they've defended Trump through everything and every single step of the way that he I mean, the pardons are a great example of this, but apologetics. People playing apologetics. It reminds me a lot of like the modern day Christian apologetics movement, but instead it's for the Republicans and stuff. And then after the Republicans, it becomes for Donald Trump specifically, because there's so many stances he has that aren't even Republican or conservative type stances and things that he's done that nobody could defend that sort of stuff. But they will. They'll still try and figure it out. So I really doubt that, personally, that he's going to do that, because I have a feeling he's going to let down most of his supporters and all these people that have been fed a bunch of hot air this entire time and have their egos on the line and their personal ideas and perception of self tied up in with Donald Trump and whether or not he's standing for me and everything, because they put their faith in this guy. It's a very religious sort of a movement and idea. However, the people on the other side of it are very, very religious and fervent too. So I could see this going either way, especially with Joe Biden and all the insanity that could come with that. I mean, we're going to discuss a little bit here Joe Biden's real opinions on Israel and whatnot, which is actually why Netanyahu was one of the first people to come right out and congratulate him straight up, which I'm sure was a blow to a lot of the Trump heads, because they tend to think that somehow the fact that Israel is down with Trump, or at least certain Israeli politicians are down with Trump, it gives him an air of legitimacy on the international stage. And personally, I think it's just more of the same. But that's just me, man. What do you think, honestly? I mean, I know you're not in country or anything like that, but like, what do you think from somebody on the outside?
I think it depends how many people turn up on the 6th outside the White House. Like, I think the idea is, people are supposed to come along on the 6th outside. There'd be, big crowds. I would say if there's a few 100,000, maybe nothing will happen. But if like 5 million turn up, like there's millions, there's literally millions of people there, which is technically possible. I do think there is quite a lot of support out there. If millions turn up, I think it might give Trump the feeling that he can do whatever he wants, basically, and he'll go for it. But I think if he doesn't get the really, really higher numbers than you've ever seen before, if that doesn't happen, I think Trump will feel like, well, if I haven't got this massive support, then I'm not doing this. And he'll give a broadcast saying, look, sometimes you have to accept defeat, that kind of thing.
It's so weird, isn't it, to think that all of this rides on just whether or not the people buy into it and run with it, because at no point does it feel like that this guy has ever stood on his own of actually standing up. It's always, well, he's got to have all these people behind him to do this, that, and the other. And it's just, it feels very much so like a pastor at a mega church or something like that, with the exact same thing. I can't do anything without my congregation behind me type stuff. And it feels trite. I mean, we're going to talk about some of the absolute trite ridiculousness on the left there with Kamala Harris and freaking Joe Biden and all this stuff, which is, get me not wrong, for a minute. I will just flat out say it. This is my opinion, not Scott's opinion, unless Scott feels the same way here, but that Joe Biden did not win the election fairly and legitimately at all. Period. Point blank.
I totally agree. I'd 100% say he didn't win. I'd also add to it, I'm disliking Biden more and more every time he opens his mouth. I mean,
Oh yeah,
you know the recent COVID relief bill, which
yeah.
is obviously
Yeah.
ridiculous. It's
Well,
like
it's
all this
tied in with
money.
the omnibus
Yeah,
spending bill. The second they
yeah.
made them the same thing, they try and act like, oh, they're two separate things. I'm like, the second you made it either vote for it or veto it type deal, then they're both essentially the same thing now. But yeah, I get you.
It's almost like an insult. It's like we're giving money to all these different people, and here's some for you. And Biden has just turned around and said, "You should just sign it." You know, it's like
I bet
he's
he
just
did.
he's just so weak. He's just really weak and pathetic, and a conformist. A conformist who just does exactly as he's told,
I
and
think the term is
exactly
feckless.
feckless or
Feckless, because that
whatever.
is
Yeah,
perfect.
he's just so I just the word weak just comes to mind with
I get
Biden.
it.
Weak and pathetic. Just pathetic.
Well, yeah, he's a
And
dictionary definition of a dotard. Like he's literally a dotard. He's somebody that is too old, too out of place, and has obviously started to lose his mind, and has been for years. Because there's stuff of even him as the vice president. My fiance is in the healthcare field and whatnot. She's an HCA, home care aide, and she's been trained to look for early signs of dementia and whatnot. And honestly, when he's VP under Obama, even around like the year 2009, 2010, dude's already started to lose his mind, right? And has been slipping further and further. And the only times, as you notice, that he becomes somewhat coherent is when he's getting angry, is when he's like, and he just gets this like little bit of rage there. And all of a sudden now his sentences are semi-coherent and he can keep it. One of the last bits of your brain to go from dementia is parts associated with, you know, the most primal, what some people would call like lizard brain type stuff, right? Of like the most base primal emotions, and rage, anger is one of those. And that's why a lot of people will notice those that suffer from dementia. It's one of the emotions that they end up going to the most towards the end of their degeneration. And I have a feeling Biden's going to get nothing but worse. And that's why they're doing everything they can to keep him hidden for as long as possible. That's why I want people to understand when I gas on Trump and whatnot, it's not that I'm on this other, because people will totally act like just because you're on one side or the other. It's
yeah,
I'm not buying into the hype on either side. And it feels like that this entire year has been a giant exercise in psyops in order to get people to buy the hype, to buy into the narrative that it's he's on our side or she's on our side, and it's just us, man. You know, the ain't no justice, just us, and that's about what we've learned here in 2020. I know that as much as people complain about this COVID stimulus bill and how terrible it is, the last one was the exact same thing, man. The last one was so much pork. It's just this one's more, and so people go, oh, now it's a problem. But it was a problem the first time when everybody wanted to crap all over Rand Paul for opposing it and saying that this is insane. That we're just putting people on state-sponsored welfare. This is essentially communism, because we've decided to get the state to destroy everybody's businesses, everybody's livelihood, their ability to make a living for themselves. And then we're going to give them the solution, which is absolute pennies that we throw in their face, and essentially just like, you know, Marie Antoinette, let them eat cake type stuff. And it is absolutely insane to see. Because I don't care if we're talking $600 or $2,000, 10 months of being shut down, no business, no money. The fact that people literally put every last bit of rainy day money that they possibly had into keeping their businesses afloat, into holding on to their houses, into holding on to anything they possibly could. The cars, the whatever that they were making payments on that they didn't actually own, that now has been repossessed and all this stuff. There's a reason that the suicide rates are skyrocketing. There's a reason the homelessness rates are skyrocketing. There's a reason depression has skyrocketed across the board. But, you know, wouldn't want people to think too hard about that, or depression may occur, right?
yeah. I mean, as I said before, I feel lucky that I had an online job. If I had a face-to-face job, I'd be totally screwed. I mean, like a lot of people, I literally, it's hand to mouth living. If I run out, I run out of money sometimes. It's month to month. There's nothing left at the end of every month, nothing. And usually there's nothing left before the end of the month, which is when I have to start begging people, you know. So yeah, I'm fortunate. There must be some people out there who've had to go back home to live with the parents and start growing vegetables in the
Well,
garden
can
or
you
something.
imagine if you're in the UK right now? Like, holy crap.
I'd be around my sister's house, living with my parents and my sisters, trying to, I mean, some people in my family are doing better financially than others. So that's my sister, basically. I'd be going
Yeah.
to going to live with my sister because there'd be, well, unless I could find a job, and I can't imagine. I imagine there's like probably 100 people for one job, or probably more.
Oh, yeah,
Actually,
I
probably
bet.
thousands. Actually, probably thousands. So it's a difficult time, and it doesn't seem to be getting much better, and it does seem like they're going to crash the economy. I'm not sure how that's going to happen. Is that going to be
Crashed already, man. I don't know if they're going to
well?
crash it.
I'm talking about like a serious crash where all money around the world is wiped out.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and we'll actually talk about that in a moment because there's something tying in with that of Coinbase is attempting to go public and whatnot, which is the very beginning of cryptocurrencies being endorsed by governments and, replacing physical currency, which as much as all these coin bugs want to talk about how, oh, yay, it's so great and everything. I'm trying to explain to these people, you realize all of this digital currency, they want it because they have every single movement you've ever made with that digital currency tracked. No matter how intelligent you think you are with my dark web this and dark web that, they literally can shut off your money at any given point. The reason they hate cash so much is because a huge percentage of the population in almost any country works under the table, doesn't pay taxes, doesn't have to worry about the government, doesn't have to be a part of anything. And so thus they can bankroll themselves and their own private endeavors. Nobody hates that more than government. Government wants to be involved in every aspect of your life. I mean, speaking of which, we didn't really have an article here talking about it, but have you seen the new, what was it, Instagram terms of service that they've updated there? I mean, keep in mind, Facebook owns Instagram, but they're talking about stuff of in your new TOS, they have access to all of your accounts. They can access your camera on your phone to make sure if you're wearing a mask or not. All this kind of stuff that the average person doesn't seem to realize. The corporations of the megacorps and the government, especially during this COVID lockdown nonsense, have become closer and closer until there's literally no difference between them, where somebody like Mark Zuckerberg can break the law, have all sorts of antitrust lawsuits and stuff against him. And yet, where does it go? Nowhere. Because they have all the money in the world to throw at their legal teams to just try and, chuck some pennies at the peasants to just say, screw off. And they get away with it. They literally can admit that they influenced the election by itself. Because let's pretend that Joe Biden got 86 million votes and all this stuff. If that's the case, the reason for it. Facebook, Twitter, all these guys doing every single thing they can to destroy one side's campaign while endorsing the other and artificially inflating it, artificially creating some sort of, it's astroturfing is the term. And so they're literally engaged in some of the most shady, fundamentally wrong political practices out there, but they're the very people that want to fact check everyone and tell us about how we need to trust election integrity, except in 2016. But then we'll make sure to never do that again. And then, by the way, they literally say that. I think we've talked about this before. Google and these guys saying that we'll never have another 2016 of the Donald Trump stuff. We can never let this happen again. They literally said that. And then people wonder why Trump lost this time around. It's very telling where we're going. And I don't get how a lot of these people, I mean, I'm pretty sure we know why, but a lot of these people on the left that claim to be against corporatism and the giant transfer of wealth from the lower class and middle class to the upper class, where the hell they are during all this, because they seem to be all over the streets when it was real convenient to make autonomous zones and it was real convenient to start burning cities down over Black Lives Matter and all this stuff. But when it comes to the lockdown, I hear nothing but crickets, and it's starting to get real goddamn frustrating and obvious as to what side certain people are on, because they're only protesting until they get a check from the government, because they don't give a shit about going back to work, because most of these losers have no jobs, have no businesses, have no incentive to do anything. So instead, keep the lockdown going just as long as I get my stimulus check, when most of the rest of us in the entire country would prefer for them to get their foot off of our necks. Because if at any moment they just reopened the economy, we would figure it out. Because, imagine that. People can figure their own way out of poverty, their own way out of a shitty situation better than government handcrafting them a solution to a problem they created. And 90% of the time, the government's solution to the problem that they created is worse than the problem itself. So, I mean, good luck.
I wanted to talk about, you mentioned about social media having access. I actually came across an incident the other day where someone was calling me on Facebook and my phone was ringing because it just automatically went straight to the phone. Yeah. And I thought, because I've got Facebook on the laptop, I've got Facebook Messenger on my phone, but I thought I don't really want that to happen all the time. I want to be able to choose which device. I discovered that you can't. It won't let you choose which device. And then I thought, well, okay, let me just turn off, make sure it doesn't ring on the phone. I can turn off the ringer. No, you can't. You cannot stop somebody from Facebook can just call you. And so I thought this can't be right. I went on the internet and I typed in how to switch off, stop people from calling you on Facebook on your phone. No, you can't. And there's all these forums that people saying this is disgusting. I want to stop. There's somebody harassing me and they're constantly calling me on my phone through Facebook. And and Facebook has not given you a setting. There's no setting on Facebook to switch off and stop incoming calls from Facebook. Can you believe that? That's not an accident, is it?
I can believe that, considering it gives them an excuse to have access to your phone and anything else that they want.
It's getting pretty ridiculous. But then we're always in this quandary where, like, I don't want to be part of it, but it's kind of really pretty inconvenient to opt out of it as well. Because
everyone in your life immediately just goes gone for the most part. And I mean, that's not entirely it, but it's just your social circle would go from a decent amount of people. I mean, how hard would it be for you and I to communicate if you didn't have something like social media, Scott, other than just emails back and forth? That's about all we have.
It'd be pretty difficult. Yeah. Plus, I mean, there's a large amount of people leaving YouTube now. It's getting larger and larger. I think YouTube will eventually die out because of because of the things they've done. Twitter, in some ways, I wish Twitter would as well, because they've been the worst this year with freedom of speech. And I mean, it's just ridiculous. I mean, why put a warning on people's speech? It's stupid.
Twitter is, I think, honestly, one of the biggest examples of, and I try not to get into the left-wing, right-wing culture war type stuff, but I will say Twitter is where you curate and create and allow to fester some of the most toxic left-wing ideology you can imagine, dude. We're talking like flat out, straight up violent communism, ethnocentric, like violent insanity. But as long as it's anti-white or whatever, it's okay. You know what I mean? Like, you probably have seen some of this insanity that they'll allow on Twitter. I mean, for God's sakes, they had stuff of like video clips going viral of white people getting the shit beat out of them by black people and stuff. And that was okay for Twitter there for like months on end to become super viral. And yet the opposite is, instantly flagged with hate speech and whatnot. So, I mean, one's got to be very, very naive to not see the writing on the wall that these people are attempting to create, because they're attempting to fabricate the society they want to see. And the society they want to see looks very much like Soviet Russia, the world.
Yeah, I think fact checkers should be renamed to speech and thought adjusters. They should just call themselves what they are. They're speech and thought adjusters.
I mean, we could just name them like TWAT, some sort of like acronym. We could just call them twats for short,
That'd be good. Because they're not they're fact checkers according to what they define as facts and their view of the world, basically. Like a lot of things at the moment. There's a certain kind of BBC type of view of the world. Like we were discussing that article, the ridiculous article that the BBC's disinformation team wrote recently. I think you might have it there.
They're literally called disinformation specialists. And you're like, wow.
Yeah. I mean, it is pathetic. It's like, if you don't see things from the BBC point of the world, which is very, very sanitized blinkered look at the world. If you don't see it that way, then you need to be fact-checked. You're a conspiracy theorist. You should just get with the program and believe everything the government tell you 100%. You can't have any doubts about anything they say.
Indeed. Well, here I got some articles for you, Scott. I'm just going to start firing out a couple random ones here. See if
before you do,
sticks.
Seth. Before you do, let me just remind people that are listening at the moment. It'd be good if you start to join the queue in a few minutes. In the middle of Seth's talking about the articles, we'll be able to see you at the bottom. I believe you'll still be able to listen. It's just we'll know you're there, and we can bring you in gradually, one by one. We could bring one person in. We'll do a bit more chatting, then we'll bring another person in. So feel free to join us when you're ready. It'd be good to have at least one person join us. So anyone out there, come and join us. But Seth will talk for a few minutes anyway first. Yeah, Seth, what was the first article?
Okay, first we have, this is just wonderful CNN propaganda here that is just glorious. After deadliest month in United States, COVID-19 death projection for January is nightmarish. Expert says December has been the nation's deadliest month since the pandemic started, with more than 63,000 Americans lost to the virus in the past 26 days. By comparison, November saw only 3,600 or 36,000.
we all know people who've died. You know that there have been dead bodies all around us, right? So
I don't.
What? You don't know anyone who's died?
Not a single one. I know, right?
Every single person I've met knows somebody who's died. I mean, what's happening? No, it's true. The media keeps saying, "Oh, this has been a tough year for everyone." I think we all know.
It's like, seriously, what the fuck are they talking about? Because I know nobody. I've seen the only times I've ever seen stuff is random comments online of people that go, my mom came over for Thanksgiving and then she died of the COVID. Don't let it happen to you.
Especially people they pick on the media. Or the only people I've heard who've been affected and not even died, actually, politicians and celebrities, more than anyone. It should be called politician and celebrity virus, because they're the only people who are getting it. And of course, I think it's probably part of some campaign.
Oh yeah. The only person I know that supposedly got it is that Mr. Matty Moses is somebody that I rap with and whatnot, Matt Moore. And supposedly he and his family had COVID there. But his entire thing is that, like, I took vitamin D and a bunch of vitamins and was completely fine. And like, I don't understand why the news has done everything they can to crap on anybody that talks about vitamins and going out and getting sunlight. And I have a feeling very much so the biggest factor in all of that has nothing to do with some virus that people are spreading so much as the fact that they had us all locked up in our houses for like 8 months beforehand and whatnot, before a lot of people started coming down with the COVID or whatever. It's very, very telling where their priorities are at. But I just wanted to share that with you of the body count insanity. Literally here in the United States, I don't know about where you're at in Thailand, but all of the local news here, even the smallest thing, always has to have the death counter somewhere. The death counter. And I swear to God, all of these weirdos seem to be obsessed with this shit on the level of, like, they get giddy. They get happy. Their ego is tied in with this number going up. And see, I told you, death everywhere type stuff. And it's fucking insane. They had a thing of what the most people that have ever died in American history in a single year died this year. And I'm like, first of all, according to CDC statistics, 2018 had like 2.8 million or 2.89 or whatever million people died in the United States. Those are just reported deaths and whatnot. So, I mean, technically that number could be far higher. But then they do the fucking COVID thing. So 2 years later, so we have 2 years of population growth. We also have the most skyrocketed suicide numbers we've ever had. We have hugely increased amounts of obesity, of people living in some of the absolutely worst conditions for your immune system you can imagine, of living for like 10 months in a fight or flight response state of being super stressed with news that's constantly like fear, like over and over and over again, psychologically getting you in the worst state imaginable for proper health. They keep you inside so you're not outside breathing in clean air or getting sunlight. And then they have you in a mask the entire time. So the few times when you are outside, you're rebreathing the same goddamn wet air that's full of freaking carbon dioxide over and over and over and over again.
Scientifically, wearing a mask has no detrimental effect on you, and you can breathe just as well with a mask. That I read that in an article. It's science. It's science, Seth.
My advice would always be to anyone to just look up this very interesting term. Anyone that wants to act like I'm crazy with the no masks thing. Brown lung. You can call me racist later for calling it brown lung, but that is the official term for it. But perhaps look that up. It's a medical condition that happens with your lungs when you are inhaling cotton fibers, because there's little bacteria upon those cotton fibers that begin to get your lungs to produce, I believe, large amounts of histamine that prevents you from being able to breathe properly. It's a very serious condition, but of course, you know who it affects most? People that work in the textile industry and whatnot. It's interesting, but I wouldn't want anybody to think too much about that. We have deadline passes as Trump refuses to sign $600 COVID check relief bill. Of course, the media is trying to put it on Trump, but at the same time, I've seen people on both sides of the aisle, left wing and right wing, totally down with Donald Trump with this particular decision, to the point I've seen a bunch of people on the left wing decrying the fact that they're like, what the fuck has happened to the politicians on the left when I'm agreeing with Donald Trump? Like, what the hell has happened, guys? But I don't know, man. Maybe this is their long play to try and get Trump to be popular with a lot of these people by just throwing money out at people. I don't even know, man. I don't even know. But it just seems ridiculous. There was no way that this was going to pass, because they needed like a solid majority again with like no refusals. So technically, even without Donald Trump's second veto, it still was kind of dead in the water anyways, right? But then they finally try and get it back through, and of course it's dead in the water again. But they're going to try and like push this to make people think, oh my god, he doesn't care about poor people and we're all going to starve to death without more government assistance. But I'm hoping that this pushes people to end the goddamn lockdown, because it feels like that's the only way that we're going to get out of this at all, is to just end it and to stop. But of course, you know, states like California have their solution to the crisis here, and this is a truly wonderful government solution. Is out of, what is it, abc7.com. Redondo Beach trying tiny homes to help ease the homeless crisis. Tiny homes could be one of the solutions to a big problem in Southern California. The homeless population in Redondo Beach is estimated to be under 200 people, small when compared to other cities in Southern California, but city officials want to experiment now with ways to meet a growing need. Quote, we had an increasing homelessness problem that we needed to which we needed a solution, said Redondo Beach Mayor Bill Brand, and we really didn't want to just wait and see what happens. We wanted to take a proactive approach. And so they make pallet shelters, roughly 8 by 8 or 8 foot by 8 foot cabins, initially designed for disaster relief after Hurricane Katrina. They're so easy to assemble and to store. How truly wonderful, Scott. Don't you want these little tiny pallet homes after they've taken your house because you can't have a job, can't work, can't do anything? And so then don't worry, you'll still get a house. You know, it's the American dream.
To be honest, Seth, if I was given a pallet home, that would be great. I've never had a house at all, so that would be actually a bonus for me.
Oh Christ! There's like no indoor heating, no nothing. It's just essentially it's a pallet shed, man, and it's literally like the wood shed. I have my firewood in outside. It's like live in that now. Like, thanks. Truly wonderful stuff. But by the way, remember that those goddamn communist Chinese, Scott, they got people living in cages and stuff. That's inhuman. So get in your pallet house, dog boy.
Yeah, that's not good.
Oh Christ! So we got anybody in?
Not yet. Come on, everyone. Let me make a little appeal. If there is anyone out there with who just, I know it can be a bit daunting to actually come on and have your voice on the air, but all you need to do is come in, say your quick piece. We won't kind of prolong it. We'll just let you say your quick piece, and then we'll drop you out, and then we'll continue talking about whatever you brought up, or just make some reference to your comment. So if you feel like a bit shy about it, just come in, say it quickly and go. We understand. Or if you want to stay
write it in the comments.
Yeah, you can write it in your comments as well, but it would be nice for someone to come in. It's nice to hear a fresh voice once in a while, isn't it?
Most definitely. Most definitely. What else do we got here? What is it? Starting January 1st, immigration status no longer a barrier to obtain an Oregon driver's license. So Oregon now, like California, 2 out of the 3 here for our West Coasties. Starting New Year's Day, you no longer need to provide proof of legal presence in the United States to obtain an Oregon driver's license. The new Driver's Licenses for All Act, passed in 2019 legislature, takes effect January 1st, 2021. Quote, individuals must still provide proof of full legal name and identity, date of birth, Oregon residency, and a social security number, according to the DMV. If an individual has not been assigned a social security number, they must sign and submit a written statement with their application. Oh, man. So it just makes Oregon driver's licenses mean absolutely jack squat, the same way that California's driver's licenses mean absolutely jack squat. Because for real, those don't actually work for federal identification. Because if they don't prove that you're a actual legal resident, then they're worthless. They're trash. So for like international stuff, you can't just use a California driver's license. You have to use separate forms of, like, I think it's just 1 or 2 additional forms of identification. But still, it's the sort of stuff that you're like actually making everybody's life a bigger pain in the ass just to supposedly help some people. And it's just really trite, man. Really trite. But again,
I kind of like Thailand's driving license laws. Well, it's not the laws, it's kind of the way it works. You go into a shop, you want to rent a motorbike or a car. In the UK, you got to fill in loads of forms, proof of identity, all this bullshit. In Thailand, they'll just say, can you drive? You'd be like, yeah. And they go, here's the keys.
That's
now give me the money. I love that. Honestly, it's just like, okay, I suppose you could argue, well, it's not ideal, but I actually love that. It's just so, all the red tape just disappeared straight away, you know?
Yeah, well, the red tape society is where we're going with everybody. And it's the more like the China type thing, like the People's Republic, right? It's just, that's not where we want to live. But apparently there are a lot of people out there that have been convinced that that is where they want to live. That is how they want to live. And I mean, it's mostly the media that's forced them through a constant diet of fear and contrived hate. Because let's not forget, they have to have the contrived hate every now and then. You know, the George Orwell, 1984, 2 Minutes of Hate. Speaking of a nice Orwellian concept here, how about let's go with some cryptocurrency? This is out of CNN Business from what it's been updated, but it's December 18th, 2020. As Bitcoin surges, prominent cryptocurrency exchange Coinbase aims to go public. As Bitcoin surges to all-time highs, the most prominent cryptocurrency exchange has signaled its intent to go public. Cryptocurrency brokerage Coinbase said Thursday that it has filed a draft registration statement with the Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, paving the way for plans for an eventual initial public offering. The announcement comes as interest in Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies has soared during the coronavirus pandemic. Investors have found such currencies attractive as the US dollar weakens. This is something that we've discussed before, of the fact that they're going to use cryptocurrency to replace dirty money, especially as our governments around the world purposely tank all of their currencies by engaging in some of the most insane quantitative easing and fiat currency monetary plans that modern history has ever seen.
Well, you know, we do live in this deadly pandemic, and you would think that because it's so deadly, if we do touch money, it would be spreading around like a wildfire, and everything would be contaminated. Because they did say it stays alive on surfaces for hours now, so surely
they
all
also
money
said that,
should be banned.
Up toes were a symptom of it. So I mean, you know, they say a lot of things.
I like that. I like that meme that's been going around, like the Dumb and Dumber one. You know, but I've got no symptoms, and then the other guy's going, "That's one of the symptoms, having no symptoms." Yeah. Yep. Which is true. This is one of the first. Well, I don't know if it's one of the first, but viruses with. Which is mostly asymptomatic people. Like mostly, literally, I think it's more than 80% of people who get COVID have no symptoms. So it's like a disease of. Imagine if everybody had no symptoms. It'd be like there's this deadly disease going around where nobody's sick. It's like it's kind of stupid, really.
Well, it reminds you of what they tried in 2008, 2009 with the new swine flu epidemic there. That thank God for doctors in France at that time that were willing to expose the lack of bodies because, you know, no one was dying, right? And that's the only reason that failed. And they didn't get to push their entire New World Order insanity. However, people seem to have bought it this time. And the thing that makes me truly sick about this is I didn't realize how far down the rabbit hole we'd gone, right? I didn't realize how sheepish people had been made. I thought there was still at least enough of a spirit of resistance in this country of all places that we wouldn't be on this tip. And yet seeing people around the entire rest of the world, no offense, but in places like Europe, but not here, has absolutely broken my heart, man. And I mean, it's great and encouraging to see the spirit of humanity alive and all these people around the world. But the fact that people look at our country as like the embodiment of the spirit of rebelliousness and you know, not fuck the system and all that kind of stuff. And yet everybody here for the most part is going along with it. I mean, I live less than 40 minutes away from people that are fighting this in Mossy Rock and all that have declared that they're not going to be a part of any of this insanity. But that's one town in the middle of nowhere in Washington, man. That's people got to step the fuck up like right now across the board because this is going nowhere but worse. And as I have a line in one of my songs, laying in your house will only work till they take it. You can only hide for so long, man, until you've got nothing and they've taken everything from you. And that's where we're going if people don't step up sooner rather than later. I mean, this is the government that people want to, give them money and everything to help save them. This is a great example of the sort of people we're talking about here. This dropped earlier today. Penguins, do you know who the Pittsburgh Penguins, the National Hockey League team, valued at $650 million, receives $4.8 million coronavirus relief loan from the U.S. government. These are the sort of people we're talking about. The guys that throw money at multimillionaires and billionaires because they need it, man. I mean, come on. What is it? Not Casey Treat. What's his name? Joel Osteen getting like millions of dollars in COVID relief funds from the federal government. This is the sort of stuff we're talking about. These are the people that we're talking about. These are the sort of people that people want to be in charge of healthcare for all and all this stuff. And you're like, are you high on the drugs, man? You want these people to be in charge of all this shit? These are the people that you want to be in charge of every aspect of our lives. People that show that at bare minimum, if I were to believe that what the general public apparently believes about these politicians is that they're all just inept. They're all just so stupid and inept, Scott. I'm like, I don't think they're so goddamn stupid considering they're getting a paycheck while you're stuck at home doing nothing. I'd say that actually makes them the opposite of stupid. Immoral, sure. Duplicitous, definitely. Deceitful, evil, wicked, whatever you want to say, with it. But stupid, I don't know about that, man.
Yeah, there's a lot of people saying a lot of this is all incompetence. I do think some of these politicians are stupid and incompetent, but that's not why these things are happening. That's not why these things are happening. They're not one mistake after the another. No, that's their agenda. That's the only thing they can do. But they are deranged people, and I don't like them. But yeah,
it reminds me a lot of the. All these guys getting in trouble for breaking their own lockdown mandates and everything, violating lockdowns and curfews and all of this insanity. People saying, but why would they do that? But why would they do that? If these people are sociopaths, I keep saying it. These people are sociopaths. They would not put their own lives in danger for something so simple as getting a meal at the store. However, for the ability and that power, that thrill of knowing that they know the truth, that this is completely fine, that this is safe, that they are not in danger at all. That power that they get and that thrill of that power they get, knowing the truth while everyone else is covered up with their masks, hiding in their houses, afraid and everything, that gets them off like nothing else in this world because it's a display of power that they have over you.
Let me give you an example of that. I don't know if you saw it. You may not have done, but there's a guy in the UK that gives out all the new rules from the government. He's the kind of guy when Matt Hancock. Have you seen that guy, Matt Hancock?
Yeah, he's the UK Fauci.
He's the kind of guy, yeah, the one of the UK Faucis. We've got a couple, actually. There's another one called Christopher Whitty, who looks a bit demonic. But Matt Hancock, you just want to punch him in the face. He's got that fake kind of face. But anyway, he was chatting to Piers Morgan about the vaccines. He came on to announce how wonderful it was because we've got the vaccines. And then Piers Morgan said, "Oh yeah, and the first person to get vaccinated was this lady here, and the second person was this guy here. William Shakespeare was his name, right?"
Yeah,
and then
I saw that. I did see that.
Matt Hancock started laughing. He was going, "Yeah," and then Piers Morgan picked up on the fact he was laughing and probably thought, "Oh, we can't have him laughing." So he goes, "I think you're getting a bit emotional there, aren't you?" And then Matt Hancock went, "Yeah, you know, it's been a difficult time." It's like, and then all the media like, "Oh, he cries on camera." He wasn't crying; he was laughing. If you go back
because
and
it's
watch
the dumbest
thing,
shit anyone's ever heard in their entire fucking life. William Shakespeare getting the vaccine. Yeah. You know why it's William Shakespeare? Because all the world's a stage and people on it only players.
Yeah, and I think they chose him deliberately so that everyone would remember the name, would be talking about it. By the way, talking of names, I want to bring up another topic. This is real conspiracy, and I think there are some conspiracy theorists who do jump on everything. It's a conspiracy. It's conspiracy. It's all true. And I'd like to think that we're slightly more rational than that. Nuanced. Thank you. Nice word. Yeah, I like to think we're a bit more nuanced on that, and we look at the facts and we can recognize sometimes that there are conspiracies that are deliberately set up to make people look dumb, and there are conspiracies that aren't conspiracies. Now, this one, I don't know if you've heard about it. It's quite interesting. My initial reaction was, no, this is just nonsense. Forget about it. And I'm still halfway on this one. I just think it's worth keeping an eye on. It's worth keeping an eye on, and it's certainly it's just interesting to go down the rabbit hole a bit. Does the name Tiffany Dover mean anything to you?
That sounds really familiar.
Right. Well, I'm sure you might have seen the first video that she was in.
Okay.
She's quite a pretty brunette nurse who was chosen by, I don't know if it was the pharmaceutical company, to have one of the first vaccines. And so they had her on camera, took the vaccine. She goes and starts doing a speech like, yeah, I think it's important we all take the vaccine. And then she goes, "Oh, sorry, I feel a bit dizzy." Yeah. She goes, "I feel a bit dizzy. Sorry." And then she collapses. Yeah. Her name was Tiffany Dover.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, what happened after that? She collapsed and then she kind of disappeared for a few days, and there wasn't any word from her, and people were kind of like, what's happened to her? So then they made another video, and it was her, and she go, "Oh, I've got this condition where
rare medical condition. Yeah.
Rare medical condition. I collapse quite often. I collapsed 6 times last week. It's to do with any kind of trauma or pain or anything. It's quite normal. And then they ask her, like, "So what do you think of the vaccine still?" And she goes, "I still think it's fantastic and everything." And then she disappears again. I think that video was taken literally the same day, actually. She disappears, right? And she usually posts on social media every day. And people started contacting her, like hundreds and even thousands of people started contacting her.
Well, yeah.
Twitter, Facebook, me, and say, "Where are you? Like, is everything okay?" No reply for about 4 days, and then accounts deleted. People start contacting friends of the family, and no response. The hospital says, "Oh no, everything's fine. She's fine." And like, "Well, let's see her then." No, she doesn't come out in public again. That nobody's seen her since, right? And then,
so she's likely dead.
This is the thing. And then the hospital release a really creepy video. You've got to see it. And there's like, "No, look, here she is, alive and well with all her colleagues." You've got to see this video. It's like a video. They're all lying down the stairs, yeah, from the top to the bottom, with Tiffany Dover near the bottom with a mask on up to here, okay? Slightly different hairstyle, different color eyes. I must say, this person does look a bit like her. Some people say it's not her.
But then why would she be wearing a mask if you're trying to tell everybody and put it to rest, right? If you're really trying to put it to bed and you got her, why the fuck wouldn't you just have her in front of the camera and be like, hi, it's me, the girl that you saw collapse. I'm fucking fine. Like,
well, exactly. And if you were going to replace her with somebody else, you couldn't let her talk, right? So she doesn't talk, and neither does. And then you'd probably think, well, if she doesn't talk, we can't have any of her colleagues talking, so none of them talk. So they're all there on the stairs, and then you've got to look at the woman second from the top, a black lady. I think she's the only black lady there at the top. And this is what, if you were trying to communicate to everybody that something is wrong, I'm going to ask you to do this. Actually, it'd be interesting. If you were told to take part in this, that you wanted to communicate to the world, but you're not allowed to speak, that something is seriously wrong, what would you do with your eyes, Seth?
Probably bug them out of my fucking head and just kind of be like looking down at this bitch like.
After this show, go and look at the video.
That's exactly what it is, huh?
Yeah, she does exactly that. She's like, her eyes are screaming, this is something's wrong here, folks. And so somebody said, well, her eyes are a different color. Now I looked at the eyes. Yeah, they don't seem to be the same color, because Tiffany Dover's got really striking blue eyes. That's why I said she's she's quite an attractive nurse, dark hair, long dark hair, and really piercing, like light blue eyes. And the person in the video, you could blame it on the lighting, maybe the darker lighting. There's no blueness, it looks like brown eyes. I would say the person they've got does look quite like her. So if it's not her, they've done a quite good job, because some people have identified who they say this other nurse is. It's not her. I don't know, but then it doesn't end there. Somebody goes online and looks at all the births, marriages, and deaths, and they find a Tiffany Dover, same age, same county, dead. About the right time, I believe.
Holy shit.
Yeah, and of course they've done a screenshot of it, so I can't check it. Maybe you could check it. I don't know.
Okay. What did they say she died from?
It doesn't say. It's just a record of deaths. It's just a record of deaths. Okay. So they're saying a Tiffany Dover, the same age, has died in the same county about the same time, and she still hasn't appeared. So it's like, and now there's this massive conspiracy. Everyone's saying she's dead. She is dead. This woman is dead.
Yeah, very likely.
The family aren't speaking at all.
Well, and we're talking about a government, especially in the UK here, who would literally be willing to send people to your house and be like, if you tell anybody about this, we'll kill your fucking family, every single one of them. And I'm to act as though the UK government is not on that tip. You would have to be so goddamn brutally naive, or be stuck living in the UK under that exact fucking authoritarian regime that's like literally steps above the Chinese government. That's about it, right? We're talking horrifying shit. I am honestly so glad that you don't live there, Scott, because it's a fucking nightmare, man. Ugh.
Yeah, it's an interesting story about this Tiffany Dover, though. I think everyone needs to keep an eye on that. I guess before she took the shot, she might have had to sign a form, and her family saying, look, if anything should happen to you, do you agree that these procedures would be followed? So it could have been a procedure where if somebody does die, like a nurse, then it would be covered up. They might have agreed to it in the first place.
Well, you remember the Catholic priest that they had during the testing phase that they had immediately before all this. That was some guy that was all over the news of, oh yes, so the Catholic Church is in on the vaccines, and this dude died before any of the rollout stuff. And they're just like, well, it was probably nothing to do with the vaccine. It was probably just him. And I'm like, real interesting coincidences we have here. And I've seen people try and say that, well, the media must want to be getting people to not get the vaccine because they're putting out all this propaganda that makes it look dangerous. Yeah. Bud, they ain't putting out propaganda to make it look dangerous. That's your internal survival mechanisms kicking in, dumbass. Like, it's literally your body's trying to tell you something ain't right here, man. And people will still just go, oh, come on, trust the experts, despite Tiffany Dover not having been seen in fucking like a month now plus. And you're just, whatever, man, just trust it. Trust the experts. What, you're not one of those conspiracy theorists, are you? I mean, for real, we're at that point where I wouldn't be surprised if they have some really bad fucking lookalike. They try and do some like Epstein bullshit with it of, Hi, I'm Tiffany Dover, as they like literally replay an earlier clip from
deep
her on a
fake video.
newscast. Exactly,
Deep
like
fake.
deep fake this shit. We're almost at that point where if people keep pushing, I guarantee you they'll do something that's stupid. And some people will buy it no matter how fake it looks.
Well, did you see the deep fake Queen speech?
Yep.
I watched a bit of it. I tried to be funny. I said basically there was the Queen and the deep fake, and I said one was an emotionless pre-programmed nonsense speech, and the other one was the AI technology.
Ooh, I like it.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, my dad's always had this thing about the Queen and Prince Charles are actually the same person, because the Queen is just Prince Charles in a dress. That's why you never see him at the same place at the same time.
The QAnon guys say that Prince Charles has been replaced anyway.
Yeah, whatever. Okay.
No, I'll give them this. There was I first heard about this, and they said go and check out this video of Prince Charles. He does look really different. I would say though that it may have been a while since people have seen him. He might have aged a bit. His face is all puffy now.
Well, also body doubles, because I know we have talked about this before, Scott, that people, especially in royal families and world leaders and shit, literally do have body doubles. Not every single one of them, but that's been a thing for a while. In some cases, just getting out of going to public appearances because they don't want to see the little people because you're disgusting. Ooh. And so instead they get to sit in Lord Astonbury's manor somewhere in the countryside, while some dickweed that's from fucking London proper just gets to go around and pretend to be Prince Charles for like 6 hours for book signings or some stupid shit.
Yeah, and Prince Charles is the only one where, I looked at the guy and he does look different. So if they had used a standing, I would say fair enough, whatever. The deep fake thing, though, I think that could happen more often.
Oh, yeah, especially after I saw the presidential speeches. Like, those are fucking dead on, man. It's spooky.
Yeah, so that's that's the one thing we've been able to trust up until now is video. You can try, well, it's on video, but it's going to come a point it could even be now, but at least in the next few years where we're not going to know anything. They can.
Well, don't forget, Scott, the moon landing's on video. I mean, I wouldn't question that.
No, well, that's high def though. Seth,
yeah, super high def. My favorite part of that is the people filming when they get there and when they leave. It's that poor man on the moon. He was there before they got there, and he was left there afterwards. It was so sad, so sad.
And managed to pan up as that thing shot up in the air.
Perfectly in time with them.
Yeah, that was a bit dodgy.
We got some Wall Street Journal propaganda here, I'm sure, because I'm not subscribed to the Wall Street Journal because it's absolute cancer. So I only got the first couple paragraphs of this. But
let me just make a quick appeal, because we're probably gonna, my battery. I had to unplug my laptop because of that sound. So we've only got probably another 30 minutes. I just wanted to say that it is getting a bit embarrassing. This is a call-in show, Seth, and so far we haven't had anyone join us. Do you think it's because they're shy, or
I think it's because they're shy, and it's also the day after Christmas. So I'm pretty sure a lot of people are
hangover.
Yeah, exactly. Or just sitting around watching stuff with family or whatever and don't really feel like they want to be on. And I get it. I get it, because that's why I said if somebody wants to be in the comments or something, at least just something, anything helps, because it's just
I would say,
new perspective.
We've only got 25 minutes, so we'd really love to hear from someone. If you're going to do it, then do it. If not, I'll rename this show to hide the embarrassment. Sorry, Seth, keep going.
Oh, totally cool. Just some quick stuff here. We got Wall Street Journal throws out anti-Putin like propaganda stuff of Moscow. During the course of 2020, Russian President Vladimir Putin took bold moves to cement his power at home and extend his nearly 2 decades in power, a likely bellwether for the next year, when the Kremlin leader could squelch remaining domestic opposition and reinforce Russia's influence abroad. A controversial constitutional amendment approved in the summer allows Mr. Putin to potentially remain in power until 2036. I can't even read the rest of this shit. But yep, that sounds about right. It's just people act as though somehow we're so different. The only difference is that the puppet in charge, the window dressing gets changed every 4 to 8 years in this country, whereas in Russia they've had the same goddamn window dressing for the last 30 years, right? What is it, since 1990, what, 6 or 8, when Putin got elected first?
Something like that, yeah. Same
Yeah,
in
because then there's
places
Medvedev for like 1 term, and then he was the VP for Medvedev or some shit, right?
same with China and Kazakhstan and places like that, you know.
Yeah, where the same dear leader is the guy in charge for like freaking ever.
I just wanted to encourage Luke, who just joined us and then left. I just wanted to encourage him to come back. I was gonna add you, but if you come back, anyone who comes into the room, we'll leave you in the queue for a bit, and then we'll bring you in. So, Luke, come back. I did see you there. I was going to bring you in, but yeah, sorry.
I am not your father, Luke. I am not your father. Sorry. But continuing on some of the other random stuff here, I knew this is how it was going to get thrown. FBI investigates if 5G paranoia was behind mysterious Nashville Christmas RV explosion. Have you seen anything on this at all?
Yeah, I have. There was a big explosion. Last I read, it was a suspected suicide bomber, something like that.
Well, yeah, because nobody came out of the RV that they'd shown there, and of course everybody goes, "It's impossible for them to have a driverless car with an RV or something." I'm like, yeah, or there's just doctored footage. But I mean, I wouldn't want to say that or imply that the government could be in on it at any level, considering a random broadcast played for people to evacuate that's so mysterious and no one knows where the broadcast came from. But rather than question it, rather than any of that, police just listened to this mysterious broadcast and then evacuated everyone safely. And so no one but potentially the person that was in the RV died. That's the sketchiest fucking shit I've ever heard in my entire life. And people are going to go with this and they're going to try and pin it on whoever they can, right? But at the moment now they're going paranoia about 5G technology, which I have a feeling the 5G technology is way more connected into stuff than anybody has let on. And that there's a reason they've tried to squash any conspiracy theory about the 5G as quickly as possible. Maybe it's just me, but I've noticed that they've put a particular importance on stamping out these terrible rumors that 5G is actually killing us and is giving people all sorts of fucking health problems and stuff. I wouldn't want people to think that. And it's kind of telling as to what their priorities are, considering at bare minimum, what would we have to do besides investigate and hold off stuff for another couple of years for a certain level of technology? I mean, what would that cost these people? Several $billion, maybe trillions of dollars. But isn't one life worth it? If it only saves one life, Scott, wasn't it all worth it in the first? I mean, these are the companies that tell us about how we're all in this together and we have to wear masks because if we only save one person with the mask, then it's worth it. Well, what about the 5G technology?
It's worth locking the entire world down just to save one person. I just wanted to give a message to Luke because he said that he entered, but he couldn't enter. I wanted to say, Luke, you did enter. You just have to wait, and then I will add you to the show. So please come back. You're our only. Oh, there's Luke now. Let's bring Luke in. And Luke, you're live on air. What would you like to say? I say Luke's live on air, but actually. Luke, your sound isn't coming through. So if you can just check your microphone's plugged in, okay? Just try again. You're actually on the air live, but I don't know if the sound's working. Let's see. Can you say something?
In the private messenger, he says I can't hear anything now or speak. That's the issue. So we're gonna try and see what we can work out here.
Luke, try adjusting your microphone. Your mic's.
Well, Luke, you've got yourself muted. You also have yourself muted right now. So if you click the little microphone thing that they have on the bottom
maybe
bar,
he's unplugging it. So Luke, try plugging in your microphone, switching on your headset. In the meantime, we'll carry on chatting. But you're live as soon as you come. There we go. Luke,
Voila.
Luke,
Okay,
go ahead with your.
Hi, Seth. Hi, Scott.
Hi, Luke. So what's your comment, suggestion, or topic you'd like to add?
Well, I was going to ask Seth about the Coinbase story, about Coinbase going public. So crypto has been quite, particularly the price of Bitcoin has been quite manic over the Christmas period. It's gone up by quite a lot. And Seth seemed to imply that crypto might be a way in which governments might be able to control our finances. So I was hoping he'd talk about that more.
I suspect
All right.
I suspect Luke has invested heavily in Bitcoin and is a bit worried now after your comments.
Well, I can't blame you for investing in any of this, considering it's one of the most lucrative trades that you could invest in, or any sort of like it's not really a commodity, but any sort of currencies you could invest in for sure right now. But my problem with it is the idea that every single transaction you have is going to be, especially with, because I have no idea that Bitcoin itself is going to be the world currency, right? It could be whatever, the US digital dollar or the world digital dollar, whatever sort of particular contrived cryptocurrency they come up with, which I'm sure the algorithms that they're going to use for mining or anything, I'm sure will be absolute trash compared to something like Bitcoin or even something like Litecoin. But I have a feeling they're going to use that for tracking everything, as they've already expressed a particular disdain for how physical cash is so hard to track and is so hard to keep every single purchase on record with. And I have a particular sort of feeling that as we've seen people more and more as time has gone on that are on the fringe of acceptable behavior be deplatformed and be destroyed from their very banking the companies that they bank with and everything. And so I have a feeling that's going to be the direction they go with digital currency as well, that they're very, very likely to start trying to clamp down on how you can have digital currency, who can have digital currency, when you have payments, when you can't have payments, the social credit score thing, much like the Chinese government is doing right now. It seems very much so as though that's the direction they're going to start pushing everything in countries like England or in the United Kingdom or in the United States, in Canada, Australia, places like that. Especially as the currencies begin to get devalued more and more, because all of this stimulus, all of this money that they're printing out, I'm sure you're more than aware, absolutely devalues the crap out of the physical currency until it becomes essentially worthless. But at the moment, they're trying to really, really, really hone in on the dirtiness of money, because of course nothing's more filthy than a dollar bill or than a pound note or something like that. It's wild. But what is your opinions on that, Luke? And just wondering what you thought.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I thought one of the main selling points of Bitcoin or certain cryptocurrencies is that it's on a blockchain, and that ledger can't really be hacked, or it's been unhackable thus far. And of course, Bitcoin in itself is quite attractive to libertarians because even its maker, Satoshi Nakamoto, no one quite knows who he is. So
it's actually Seth. It's actually Seth. We've been hiding the secret.
My yes.
No, just joking. Sorry, carry on.
The issue would be that if what you're saying is true and anyone could possibly find out that ledger, that would completely destroy any purpose of the currency itself. I think it's quite true that governments can access it outside of the blockchain, so it can control who purchases it in the real world. However, I'm aware with certain cryptocurrencies that you can have a live exchange as long as you both have an external wallet. You can exchange crypto anywhere around the world. I mean, I'm quite new to crypto myself, so I'm just feeling my way around it at the moment.
Well, and it's like you're saying, it's very, very attractive as far as investments and whatnot, which is why everyone says the second you see the news saying that Bitcoin is dead, cryptocurrency is dead, that's some of the best times to invest, because it's only a matter of time until the rebounds. But the cryptocurrencies, more necessarily than something like Bitcoin even, that I'm actually worried about would be the government-backed cryptocurrencies that they're going to eventually have, or electronic currencies. I have a feeling those are going to be quite lucrative for the government and absolutely no one else.
Do you sorry, I was just going to ask, do you think any governments will actually turn their currency into a cryptocurrency. One very interesting story I heard is that the Venezuelan military is now engaged in mining cryptocurrencies at the moment. So, yeah. When will a government release a sort of digital currency?
Just one moment.
I'll take it while Seth's dealing with whatever there.
Sorry, I had a dog just being a turd, chewing on himself in the freaking living room.
Back
here.
to you, Seth.
Had to throw a lighter at him. But as far as the cryptocurrency thing, I have a feeling that governments are going to start instituting cryptocurrencies as a means, once they start introducing digital currencies, of keeping other countries from hacking their currencies and messing with it. I'm sure there'll be some sort of digital Pearl Harbor that they'll have, essentially some new 9/11, but in terms of currency wars. And that will very likely kick off some sort of its series of attempts to try and create some new, more secure blockchain method or something like that. And so it's going to be very interesting to see where it goes, but I have a very strong inkling that within the next year to 5 years, we're going to see the rise of electronic currencies at bare minimum with many of these countries, if not eventually becoming cryptocurrencies themselves. But the next, like, was it Agenda 2021 or Agenda 21, Agenda 2030, Agenda 2050, all this sort of United Nations, one world government ideology stuff really does hinge on a single currency control medium. And granted, at the moment, the United States dollar has been that currency that's the essentially like the Roman standard for the entire world now. But pretty sure that the Chinese digital dollar, whatever they're going with, or the Russian digital dollar, what other nation like that is going with. I mean, Israel has already attempted to introduce the digital shekel, the electronic shekel, and that I have a feeling those sorts of currencies are going to be really what become the new gold standard for the coming century.
Does that answer your question, Luke?
Indeed, it does. Thank you.
Well, I want to give you a big thank you for being our only caller on our call-in show today. Thanks.
And a heck of a caller too. This is
what a heck of a caller.
Yeah.
A big round of applause for Luke. Thank you, Luke. I just we're going to be winding down soon. Thanks again, Luke. I really appreciate that call. If anyone else would like to join us, there's a slot open there now. If you want to, we're probably going to continue for another 10 minutes maybe.
Yeah, I can wrap it up really quick here.
Until my battery runs out, unfortunately. I mean, let me just try plugging in the power, and let me see if the guests say this is annoying, because we can carry on longer if this isn't too annoying. So can anyone hear that buzz? Does it come across pretty bad or not? Let's just if someone in the comments could just let me know whether that buzzing noise. I've just plugged in the power on my laptop so we could continue a bit further. So do let me know. Seth, can you hear the noise now?
Only right when you plugged it in, and once you started talking, it completely just gets stopped. So I mean, I think we'll probably.
Let's see how it goes anyway. I wanted to continue on and change the subject slightly but stay on the economic line. A lot of people are predicting that a lot of this COVID virus pandemic, scandemic, however you want to look at it, the one of the end goal, apart from the vaccinations, is the economic crash, and
the Great Reset, as they call it.
Yeah, and I remember back in 1986, I went to see a preacher who was talking about the coming global economic crash that was going to happen. It was going to wipe out all currencies, bring in a digital currency, which would then bring about the mark of the beast. Barry Smith, that was it. Check out. He's actually a very good speaker. I'll give him that. And he was like, he was talking about a lot of the things people are talking about these days, way back in the 80s. And he was pretty close, I'd have to say. I get a feeling that that's going to happen maybe next year. Some people are saying by March, there's going to be a worldwide economic crash. All currencies will be wiped out. We'll all be given stimulus checks or whatever. It'd be like a communist system, I guess, where everyone has the same amount, be the death of capitalism. But do you think that is feasible, Seth?
Well, whether or not it's going to survive in the long term doesn't mean it's unfeasible for the government to do it, considering it was never going to work in the long term when the Soviets did it, or even with the communist Chinese. That's why over time they've begun taking more bits and pieces of whatever bit of capitalism that they like in order to try and continue propping themselves up. And so I don't really think that any of this is unfeasible for government, because they've been willing to go in lockstep with all of this along the entire way. And this has been their plan from the giddy up. And that's why I think the guy that you're referring to had called it even back then, because anybody that knows their game plan, that's read it, knows what's going to happen. I mean, these are the sort of people that brag about it. Somebody that I've rapped with and stuff, that ODD TV guy, once described it as these are the sort of people who have plans that go into the future hundreds of years from now. You don't even know what you're going to have for breakfast tomorrow morning. That's the sort of people we're talking about. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. But most people don't, Scott.
Eggs and toast. Oh, okay, sorry to destroy that metaphor. Yeah, I always know it's 2 eggs, toast, and coffee, Seth.
Hey, at least you're predictable, man. At least you're predictable.
Yeah, I am with my breakfast. Yeah. I just wanted to have a look through my list here in case there was any questions I wanted to ask you. COVID relief bill, the Queen's speech, we've done that. COVID-19 variants, Seth.
Yes, COVID-20.
Yeah, the variant, which is have you noticed on the media? It's like, oh, we've just had one in Sweden. We've had one in here. Oh, well, there was an Englishman came over here. It's like, it's almost predictable. Like they had to bring in something new so we can extend it for next year now.
Well, yeah, and despite having the borders closed in all these goddamn countries, no international flights or anything, somehow they all magically just had the exact same mutation at the same time. You're like, yeah, I'm buying that for sure. But then again, if you're one of the people that bought this from the beginning, you'll probably buy it now. We're talking about the sort of people that will buy COVID-21. They will buy whatever. They'll buy the next thing. There'll always be some new deal to keep people that justifies them giving up their rights. And as anybody has pointed out before, I mean, I'm far from the first person to bring this up. Government never admits they were wrong. It's always government admits that government 150 years ago or 100 years ago was wrong, but they never admit that they were wrong, that they were just wrong, that they fucked up. Not one time. It's always some excuse, some reason that they were justified in what they were doing. We had the best of intentions. And so I have a feeling that unless people really stand up this year and through things like the Trump rally type stuff, unless they really stand up and show some sort of nationalistic spine, for the most part, we're majorly effed as a country and as a world.
Hey, Seth. This is supposed to be a light-hearted, positive. Yes, we're not doomed at all. Everything's
Don't worry, you'll at least have a paycheck guaranteed if you're still alive.
I was watching a video the other day where the inventor of the PCR test, Carrie Mullis, was saying basically that all the governments around the world are abusing his test. He said, and
that Fauci doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about.
Yeah, he completely slagged off Fauci, and he said governments obviously have an agenda because they're misusing the test, and that all of these there's going to be so many false positives. And I think it's obvious the whole pandemic is based on all these false positives, creating outbreaks that don't actually exist.
Didn't he also die in like August or April of last year? I think it was like August.
Really?
Yeah, of last year, 2019.
Carrie Mullis?
Yeah.
If he had, that would be another conspiracy. Let me just check.
Yeah, check it, dude.
Oh my.
You ready to have your mind blown?
Bang! Did you hear that noise? That was my. I hope someone's looking into why he died.
Oh, I'm sure it's completely fine and just a coincidence, Scott. It's totally cool.
I'm going to type in...
Why would you think it was sketchy right before? The fact that even then, that he knew that they were abusing his fucking tests. Can you imagine what he would have said if he'd seen any of the stuff with COVID? Almost like he needed to be out of the way.
I'd be extremely suspicious of his death. He died of pneumonia. Well, I'm surprised they didn't put it down to COVID then, because pneumonia.
Well, that was
is pretty
before
close.
COVID. That was before COVID, and that's exactly it too. Interesting. He dies of a respiratory disease right before they unleash the ultimate bullshit respiratory disease on the entire world, and then abuse the ever-loving Christ out of his test.
Wow. Well,
Yeah,
that's
man.
weird. That's weird because in the video I was watching, I assumed he was still alive, and he was saying that now. But
Nope.
he was saying in August the 7th. That's like really
Yeah,
before. That was like right at the beginning.
Yep.
Wow. Yeah,
And that
is
even
really...
then he knew Fauci was fucking trash because Fauci had been around way before the COVID stuff. He'd literally been playing himself up as some sort of health expert for the government for years, man. Fauci's a predator, dude. All these people are predators. They're essentially just like talking heads. As that Kerry Mullis guy said, like, Fauci hasn't practiced science in forever. It's a freaking joke, man. None of these people are scientists or doctors or anything like that or have anything to do with health. They're script readers. They're essentially like Bill Nye the Science Guy. Fauci's about as much of a doctor as Bill Nye is a science guy. It's
I would
or a
say
scientist.
I would be extremely suspicious of his death. If he was alive now, you imagine he'd be on every TV network saying,
Period.
This. He was saying this. It was being abused in August before anything. He couldn't have predicted what was going to happen in the coming
To be
months.
honest, that's probably why he's dead, Scott.
That's probably why he's dead. I'd be extremely suspicious. Pneumonia. I mean, he wasn't even that old. I've had pneumonia. You can't. I mean, but it is the kind of thing that kills.
No, it does. My grandmother
people.
died of pneumonia. It's
It's
nasty
a killer,
stuff, man.
but
it's
it tends
not.
to get older people.
Yeah.
And he was in his 50s, I think. Oh, okay, maybe a bit older. 44. That would make him, maybe 60s, 70s. Even so, I would be extremely suspicious. Yeah.
Like no other. I'm sorry you had to get that dropped on you in the middle of a show, man.
I had no idea.
The second I saw that interview, I thought the exact same thing, dude. I thought, oh my God, where the fuck is this guy and all that? Until I see when he died, and then it's just the freaking X-Files music starts playing in my head as I'm like, oh shit.
Well, can you imagine, like, people would take him seriously. If he was appearing on networks now saying, this PCR test is being abused. It's nonsense. I invented this. And on the bottom of the screen, it's the inventor of the PCR test says this is all nonsense. They would have had to kill him.
It's almost like either they wanted him out of the way or they waited literally until he died. Because I don't put it past them to literally just wait until somebody dies.
No,
especially for this.
I think the timing of this pandemic is fitted in perfectly with the elections.
I just wanted to put out something there for people that maybe don't want to go down the rabbit hole all the way and want to try and have their cling to the fence tenaciously of like, no, right? But whatever, man. I genuinely think that they whacked the dude. It's very likely that
I'd have to agree with you. I mean, if you were going to create this pandemic out using the PCR test, which appears to have happened, you'd have to kill the inventor because he was already speaking out in August. So, if I was his family,
somebody in the comments, Eretz Zeru says PCR tests are good. COVID-19 in quotes there is the human genome. I wouldn't be surprised at all, especially if something like environmental theory of disease is right. When we're talking about something like, was it isosomes or whatever, the little proteins that you essentially put a coating over a lot of these foreign materials to excrete them out of your body. And then people assume that those little bits of protein are your are viruses or whatever, right? And if that's the case, then people might always believe this bullshit. People might always be on this same tip because I mean they believe, man. It reminds me a lot of a cult.
We've got more time now. My power's back on. Let's start talking about the future. I think it's good to speculate. There's a lot of people now that are like, "Oh, you can't speculate about anything." Yes, you can, and I think you have to. I mean, I do think the economic crash is coming, in one way or another. I mean, it's happening here on the ground in Thailand. I'm looking down the street. I reckon, I mean, even now, if I go down the street, there's for sale everywhere. Every property's for sale.
Same.
on every motorbike, because there used to be a big trade for the tourists renting motorbikes. You've got all these motorbikes lined up, not being used, for sale, for sale, for sale. I've noticed one phenomenon that's happening is that some people are pouncing in thinking, wow, I can get this property half price.
Again,
so they're coming in, but not to replace everything. I mean, I'd say 6 months from now, it's just going to be the street that I'm on and the whole of this island. It's just going to be collapsed.
A ghost town, essentially. Dude, where I'm at here, I'm in 100% the same boat as you, man. I live in what is Touristville, right? The only reason out here in Mineral, LB, Ashford area that any business lives, really, for the most part, is on tourist dollars. And granted, this is by design. So because a lot of these rich older people decided they could swoop in here and capitalize off the tourism trade and not need to appeal to like locals in order to survive. And it worked for a long time until this. And almost everybody across the board is collapsing when it comes to tourism industry. It's insane. One of the big ones out here that I thought was crazy, and this isn't anything to do with news articles and whatnot, but supposedly there was a guy in LB that is essentially the Donald Trump of LB, right? This guy named Gail Adams runs the gas station, like the only gas station in town, right? Type stuff. And he's the big swinging wang of people out here, and he got shut down because not having employees wear masks. They literally got the L&I people to come in and make like claims against him that he was putting his employees in danger because didn't have to wear masks. And just seeing the little bit of resistance that we have out here fall apart because, unlike Mossy Rock, communities aren't willing to stand together is really freaking disheartening, man. It's really freaking disheartening because that shows you that no matter how rich you are, no matter how powerful you are, if you don't have the people standing together around you, you got nothing. Because when the system comes for you, they'll eat you, man. They'll eat you. They don't give a shit.
I was actually thinking about that earlier. Like, in one sense, I'm in a really lucky situation. I'm on an island in Thailand where, okay, cases are down, even if you believe in this the virus. Although there are murmurs going on now that Thailand might be heading for a lockdown because they're taking it like, whereas England, you've got to have thousands of infections and they're going to lock you down. Yeah. Here, you only need about 10. And then they're going to lock the whole country down.
I think that's by design, though, because they realized that they were never going to get those numbers that they needed to contrive in order to, in places like England or the United States, in somewhere like Thailand. I mean, granted, it's literally the population density, and the fact that the kind of people that the Thai people are, where it takes a different amount of approach, right? Where they're willing to allow stuff as long as they say, well, I mean, some people have suffered, so it's for the greater good of everybody. Whereas because of, let's say, intrinsic selfishness in people in Western nations, there's a lot more of that thing of, well, we actually need to have a real body count before people start going along with whatever BS the government wants.
Well, they did kind of admit that the testing creates cases because they said the other day, because there was a small outbreak in this area, they're going to test everyone. And then the medical officer said, well, of course, if we test everyone, we're going to create new cases. He actually said that. So he said that could mean there's going to be a lockdown. So it's like they're just admitting it. If you test people, you find cases.
Well,
and,
I mean, even if we were to believe their BS, according to them, it's got like a 40% false positive or false negative rate. So, I mean, that alone already, if your stuff is a coin flip, it's worthless. It's like no other medical device or operation would have that for a standard.
I've heard higher. I've heard some people say 40, 45. I've heard some people say 80% false positives. I think that's probably more likely.
Yeah, that's insane. That kind of stuff right there would make that worthless. But also the PCR test, as Erid Zeru says there in the comments, PCR tests are good. There's nothing wrong with them for what they're designed to do. But again, people abusing them purposely, willfully, is the problem with all this. And that's if that freaking Carrie Mullis guy was still around in order to talk about this, that's exactly what we'd be talking about right now, is the fact that these people are abusing the tests in order to try and get them pseudoscientifically to say whatever the hell they want them to say. What do we got here in the comments?
Talking of pseudoscience, we'll come to that in a sec. Talking of pseudoscience, don't you love the way science is used to manipulate things? Like, all these variants being discovered, we're not going to see any scientific evidence for it. We just have to trust all these
don't you
variants.
trust the experts? I mean,
Yeah,
they are the scientists.
Yeah, we don't even need any scientific evidence. They just say that the variants have been discovered. Now, how are they catching all these variants? How?
And any doctor or scientist that disagrees with the official mainstream narrative is completely and totally lambasted as a far-right conspiracy theorist.
And then we've got scientific statements like, well, the vaccine should still work. No, it doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be scientific. It's just like, oh, it should work. Should still work. Okay, fine.
Well,
so in the comments,
Bill Gates with his answer there of where he wouldn't tell the lady. She's like, so Bill, are these vaccines safe? And he just,
well, the FDA has the gold standard of testing, and we're lucky that we have more than one test and more than one vaccine.
and he's like, you scum.
he's
just
a
scum,
creep.
man. He's trash.
He just makes me. I can't even watch him anymore. I just have to switch over because he just gives me the creeps. How anyone can believe anything he says.
Well, and as somebody, I've people in my family that have for the longest time have had this thing that Bill Gates is the Antichrist, right? Dude, the more time has gone by, the more I see the fact that foreign dignitaries, people like the Pope or the Queen of England, will give deference to somebody like Bill Gates. And it is creepy as hell to watch because you're like, this is supposedly just some guy. And yet to all the sheep out there, he has like a majesty to them. You know what I mean? You can literally watch them as they bow to Bill Gates. And it is fucking creepy, man. It is super creepy because, again, he feels like the high priest of some cult because he's not in the government, not a scientist, not a doctor, none of this, not a virologist, not an epidemiologist, not any of that. And yet they literally take his words as essentially a mandate of Bill said this, Bill said that. It's real interesting where we're going with that.
But they do the same with the media. It's like, well, the media said this, it must be true. And it's become clearer to me more than anything in the last 6 months. The media are not only sort of like giving a distorted version of the news by accident or anything. They're deliberately manipulating the news to harm people, like with the Hunter Biden story.
Well, Operation Mockingbird, man.
I would say the Hunter Biden story with the BBC, what the BBC did was, I would say, is illegal. They can't be that politically biased. They're not supposed to be. People pay money for it in England.
Those unsubstantiated claims about Hunter Biden's emails.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
The BBC are worse than useless now. I really can't stand them.
But then also, they don't say unsubstantiated when they're talking about Russian interference in the U.S. 2016 elections and stuff. Yeah, it's very, very telling. What is the official news and what isn't. Well, yeah, exactly. But then they have the balls to paint themselves as unbiased. At least if they told you flat out to everybody, we're fucking biased as shit, at least people would know, right? Even the average sheep there that watches would be like, oh, well, I mean, they're biased. But they go, we're completely fair, balanced, accurate news. And you're like, what fucking world are you on, man? Where you guys are like CNN is fair or balanced, or BBC is fair or balanced news.
And the fact checkers fair and balanced. Like, someone needs to regulate the fact checkers. They can't make some of the statements they've made. They're completely false. I could fact check the fact checkers and literally write over the top of them saying this is false information because it blatantly is.
Well, they've done it before with the election stuff. They've done it with all sorts of these baseless claims Donald Trump has. Yet simultaneously, most of these court cases have nothing to do with Donald Trump as far as who's putting them through and everything. And he's actually won a couple of them, or rather the people doing it have won a couple of them. But if you were to listen to the media, he's lost 50 court cases. But it's so contrived and freaking one-sided that I think that kind of stuff is part of what fills in the other side of the propaganda that a lot of people go with. It's like the Vince McMahon thing of when you see the referees in the middle of the wrestling match are obviously on the side of the bad guy and all this stuff, then of course it sells the baby face, the good guy to you there. And it's very obvious that to people that have an IQ above 80, Donald Trump is supposed to be the good guy fighting. He's the David against the Goliath of the system, right? But for anybody with that IQ below 80, orange man bad. And it feels as though that's pretty much the direction they've gone with all of this. Is on one side you have orange man bad, and on the other side of it you have God Emperor Trump standing up for the American way and for Western values worldwide, despite the fact that ain't the case. I mean, if we want to, we can really get into those fucking pardons and stuff. The fact that dude could have pardoned somebody like Assange or goddamn Edward Snowden or Bradley Manning or Chelsea Manning, whatever, right? Could have pardoned any of these people. And yet, no. Instead, we get Blackwater mercenaries. We got the fucking, what is it? Michael Flynn. We've got Roger Stone. All the same sort of people that are in Trump's cadre that essentially benefit him and nobody else. But again, the QAnon people will still come up. Well, it's actually the 5D chess he's playing. It's 7-dimensional chess. You don't quite understand.
Let's talk about that for a second. Yeah, because I would say, yes, Trump is better than Biden. I'm sure he's got a good side to him, but the problem with the QAnon people is they take it too far and they do turn him into the Messiah. Some of the things I've heard them say, they do look at him as a messianic figure.
Well, he was literally sent by God, Scott. I mean, that's why he's friends with God's chosen people in the Middle East.
And I've heard also one of his family members' middle name is Christ. That proves he is of God.
Sure.
And then there's all the. I'm gonna say some good things about the QAnons and some bad things. First of all, I'm gonna talk about some of the stupid things. Executions. There's all going to be all these executions. In fact, a lot of them have already happened. Did you know Biden was executed in May? He's been replaced by his clone. The only execution I've actually heard Trump do is one I would. Okay, there was an execution. Apparently, he started doing all these executions. Electric chair and lethal injection. Okay, I'm for disclosure. I'm against executions in general. I think if death if murder's wrong, I don't think it should be the state that then murders, that then kills.
Well, yeah, they're the least moral people in the history of humanity. Why the hell would you trust them with the power of life and death?
I can understand why people would want somebody who's committed an atrocity to die, but
exactly.
I would say in some cases there are redeeming circumstances, and Trump recently I don't think can be blamed entirely on Trump, but he probably had to sign it off. There was a guy recently, I can't remember his name. He was one of the last executed in the last couple of weeks, and I read the story. Initially, I thought, well, this sounds it was pretty barbaric what the guy was involved with. But he was a young man. It was a black guy. They took a couple. They stole some money off them, I believe, and then they put them in the boot of the car. They drove around for 5 hours, which stuck in the boot of a car for 5 hours would be enough for me. But then they shot one of them and then shot both of them, but the woman was still alive. And the guy that was executed recently was asked to set fire to the car. Now, presumably, he knew the woman was in the boot still. Apparently they say she may have still been alive, but anyway, it was pretty bad. But anyway, I saw an interview with the guy, and he's been in jail for a long time now. I believe he's probably come to a realization of what he's done, and I believe he's probably not a threat to society anymore. So at the very least, I don't think they should have executed him. You could make the case that he shouldn't be released from prison, fair enough. But I don't think they should have executed him. But Donald Trump gave the go-ahead. So if he's this Christian guy, why is he executing this guy when he had the chance to at least allow him to live? The guy.
Yeah, well, why is he drone striking people in the Middle East? I mean, at very least, you can make the argument that the guy that we're talking about there he's a fucking monster, robble, regardless of what you believe. But what about some kid that's collateral damage at his dad's house, that his dad made bad posts about the government or was involved in an organization that's potentially evil? What makes that child's life not matter anymore? Considering Obama literally famously said, when talking about the gun control stuff, if it saves one child's life, then it's worth it. Well, then at what point is that one child's life worth a goddamn? when it comes to the drone strikes, when it comes to invading other countries, when it comes to the fucking Tomahawk missiles and stuff and collateral damage. At what point do they matter? We got what is it? Aritz Zeru in the comments here. We can talk about that if you'd like. Some ionizing.
That was about
macros.
COVID-19. I put a reply to that saying I think we're
Okay,
agreed
cool.
that it's the greatest hoax perpetuated on humanity in known history. I'd have to agree with that. To coerce a dehumanizing vaccine, yeah, that's definitely part of it. To crash the economy, that seems to be another part of it. And I think there's probably going to be other parts of it that we're going to find out next year as well. I think, if we're going to look at what's going to happen next year, first of all, I wanted to, continue in the QAnon. I think one of the attractions of the QAnons is I've heard a lot of them going, hey, why are you being so negative, man? Let's be positive. It's
negative.
Like, okay, let's be positive for a second. Next year, Trump is going to shut down CNN, BBC, all the media companies, and then he's going to put them on trial. All the heads of the media organizations, put them on trial, shut them all down, and we'll have new alternative media will come to the surface. He's going to put
Alex Jones will be the new head communications czar.
Hillary Clinton, all the Clintons will be in jail. Apparently, Bill Clinton died last week, according to the Clintons. And everyone's going to be put in jail. All the pedophiles in Hollywood, they're all going to be executed.
I thought some of them already were, though, Scott.
Half of them already have been. Some of them have been replaced by clones, including Tom Hanks. We're all going to be given payouts, all debts forgiven. We won't have to work again because we've all been traded on the stock market in our names. We've all and they've been betting on us, which could be possible. I don't know, but because that's been happening, apparently we're all millionaires and we didn't even know it. And that's all going to be deposited in our bank accounts, but only little by little because we wouldn't be able to handle it. In fact, the reason why they haven't told us about all the executions on the news and stuff is
because we couldn't handle it.
We couldn't handle it, basically, and everything's going to be fantastic. And I've even heard that we will actually, as from next year, we'll be living to 500 years old, apparently.
Jesus Christ.
No, I'm not even joking.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Oh, and one of them, and this is no lie, one of them said Elvis is still alive at the end of their conversation.
Yeah, naturally, Scott, of course. You have to have the cherry on top. It's got to be
I'm not even joking, and they were taking that seriously. And
was it him with Tupac? Was he with Tupac? Are they hanging out in Cuba with Tupac? Because if Tupac's not there, then I don't know. I'm okay with it.
I'm actually not joking. I think they might have mentioned Tupac as well.
Well, probably it's the same shit to discredit a movement to get people like buying into the fucking Mickey Mouse, man. It's a bad joke.
Oh, wait a minute.
People buy into it.
Wait a minute. There was another one yesterday. Trump's wife. What's her name again?
Melania.
She is from the Pleiadian colonies. The constellation. She's from the Pleiadians. She's a goddess from the Pleiadians, and she's
isn't she a member of the Galactic Federation? That's of course
a bit like Wonder Woman. She probably has the same costume. I don't know. And she's here to protect Trump during this great time of change. We're going into a new world next year where everything will be amazing. We're going to live to 500 years old.
Yeah, she's not just some Lithuanian whore that is hanging out with a fucking multi-billion-dollar human garbage pile, but
hey, that's a bit harsh, Seth. I'm trying to be positive here.
Oh yes, sorry. Positive. What is that? COVID positive, HIV positive. Depends on if you got the vaccine or not, right? What?
Yeah.
At least if you're in Australia there, because I mean, we were talking about the COVID and everything, but what about the fact that in Australia they literally stopped doing their program because too many HIV false positives and just what? And people are like, oh come on, don't worry about it, man. It's just false positive. Like you fucking hope. Now I'm gonna defend the QAnons a bit and saying I've listened to some of their programs like Charlie Ward. Charlie Ward is a very nice guy most of the time. I've heard him getting a little bit kind of messianic himself sometimes. Sorry, Charlie, if ever you're listening, but that's true. But he is a nice guy. I can understand why people are really drawn to him. He's a nice guy. He did used to belong to a cult, and I sometimes wonder whether all those years he spent in the cult has made him kind of believe people a bit too much about certain things. But to his credit, he is listening to all these different people. And
I think he needs to adjust his filter a bit so that he doesn't believe everything he hears. I'm sure he doesn't. I don't want to patronize him. I think he's a nice person, and I think some of the QAnons are, but they can't just believe everything you hear. You've got, if someone says Elvis is still alive, and she's a clairvoyant, this woman, and they're all really into her, it's like, come on, you can't. If someone's saying Elvis is still alive, alarm bells should be going off. I mean,
considering, wouldn't the dude be like fucking 100 plus right now?
Look, if Elvis is alive, fine, but you can't just believe it because someone said it. You've got to have a little bit of evidence, you know.
But they don't have to, man, because this is the thing, is they've reached that point that in order to be positive, they'll literally grasp at straws of anything. And
anything that's positive. So
it's the same thing. If Donald Trump is fighting for us, well, what the fuck do you think people on the left think Joe Biden is doing? For real. A lot of them believe he's fighting against the evil, corrupt Donald Trump and those damn right-wing Republicans. It's creating alternative, competing realities, which are actually totally contrived from the ground up. However, that's the very nature of what social media was put in place for, to create echo chambers so that they could fundamentally crush people into little tiny divergent groups that were far easier to control and corral and mentally manipulate and get to do pretty much whatever the fuck you want them to. And unfortunately, I think that a lot of the Trump people, for the most part, stood a pretty goddamn good chance of actually changing things in this country, but they got co-opted. And it's what happens exactly like with the left. The left has large amounts of energy, but not the intellectual wherewithal of what to do with that energy and how to actually make positive changes. And so a lot of the left-wing politicians and giant corporations will jump on that. It's the same reason BLM was nothing but a giant fucking corporate stooge fest, right? Despite the fact that these guys are supposedly trained Marxists and all this shit, yet we're also doing nothing but making some of the biggest companies in the world even bigger. Yeah, right? Because it's, I'm not saying that Marxism or that communism is good. It's not. However, the fact these people don't even fucking believe in what they claim to believe in, because like anyone in this country and in this world, it seems, in our modern day world, almost everybody is willing to sell out their ethics, sell out their morals, sell out their platform, their beliefs for this. Just a little bit, not even a ton, man. And it is fucking pathetic. And it's one thing I will say, that the Illuminati, the people that control all of this, whoever you want to call them, right? I guarantee you they see that in everything, and it's part of why they loathe us and why they hate us so much. And granted, we're a reflection of them. They're a reflection of us, right? They can get on this high horse of acting as, especially with somebody like Bill Gates and all this, acting as though we are the useless eaters, when in reality, his genetic line, all these people that are at the top of the pyramid and all this stuff are some of the most gross, unhealthy, mentally, physically, spiritually, just jank human beings to have ever existed.
That kind of reminds me of that Mitch McConnell guy.
Your
description, Turtleman. What a, yeah. I mean, I'm not being horrible, but okay, I am being horrible. He really does look. He really does look like a kind of melted. I don't know how to describe him, but it's not an attractive thing.
Well, yeah, you have him and Nancy Pelosi standing across from each other, and you're like, Jesus Christ, man, what's going on in America? Adrenochrome shortage much? Like, what the hell, guys?
If you look at most politicians in all countries, they are the epitome of what people wouldn't want to look like physically, and they're not the healthiest people. They're now controlling the entire health of mankind.
Oh, yeah. Well, you have like the 500-pound health minister that's just, where's people need to take care of our health. You're like, yeah, okay. Yeah, sure. That's who I'm taking advice from. It's the same thing as the person that doesn't know whether or not men can have penises or vaginas or women can have wieners or whatever, right? Somebody that doesn't know what gender theirs. That's who I want as my health expert. Okay. Somebody that doesn't understand how fucking chromosomes work. That's who I want as my health expert. Okay. Great expert, good expert, terrific expert. I mean, I wouldn't want people to be transphobic or fat phobic or anything like that, right? Interesting times we live in, Scott.
While we're on the subject of health, here's an article from the BBC, which is on the main page of the BBC at the moment. COVID, EU starts mass vaccination in touching moment of unity. And there's a photo of all the vaccinating doctors clapping as an old lady gets her vaccine. Everyone's celebrating. And there was an article. There was an article like that saying, "Are you looking forward to getting your vaccine?" And I wrote back saying basically, "Yeah, I'm really looking forward to having a concoction of untested solution injected into my arm under the guise of protecting me against a pandemic which defies all logic," and that kind of comment. Basically, I've always been a little bit open-minded to vaccinations. I say that, but that was only when I was young. Now it's more of a case of, hang on a minute, I just don't want anyone to inject me with anything. It's not, even if I didn't.
Well, yeah, especially because you can't trust them, because you don't even know what the fuck they're going to try and inject into you. That, as just a base fundamental level, is like what drives all anti-vax people, of the fact that I don't even know what the fuck you're going to try and inject into me. You can tell me it's whatever. In the same level of the people that are on the news when they have Mike Pence getting his vaccine or whatever, the fact that they could be putting saline solution, vitamin B, whatever, they could be injecting somebody with this, and you would have no idea what the difference is, because how would you know?
It's not as if it's the nicest people on earth that are making the chemical they're injecting you with. I mean, pharmaceutical organizations, Bill Gates, pharmaceutical organizations, they don't have a history. They do have a history of being affected by greed, as you were mentioning before, like
very
money.
Hard.
Yeah. Bill Gates, if you look more into, everyone thinks he's this philanthropist who gives so much of his money away. If you look into it, no, actually he doesn't. He creates pharmaceutical companies, and then he goes, look, I'm going to give $10 million to this pharmaceutical company. Now, if you look further into it, you'll be like, wait a minute, isn't that the one you just set up? You've just given money to yourself, in effectively. And
Gavi. Never forget Gavi, because Gavi got money from the U.S. government for the last COVID stimulus bill and all this bullshit. He literally got money from the United States government. Bill fucking Gates.
Well, if you ask,
profits off coronavirus relief, man. So I mean, there's no ulterior motive that Bill Gates would have. He just does everything for our greater benefit.
There's an interview you can find with Bill Gates where he's asked, why have you got involved with vaccines? And he goes, it's the biggest, he basically says, I'm paraphrasing, it's like, for the money, man, it's making, it's the biggest return.
20 to 1. Yeah, he's at 20 to 1.
It's biggest return on investments he's ever made.
Yep.
If
Zeru says in the comments here, they appear to be initializing neo-feudalism, and I have to just flat out say I agree 100%, man. That is what it feels like. And these techno-feudal lords, where essentially, rather than divine right of kings or anything, they go divine right of things. Right? They have more shit than the next guy. So thus, I am the king of you peasants. And that's pretty much what it feels like. Granted, whether or not the certain ethnic groups or religious groups that any of these people happen to be a part of at disproportionate rates or whatever, that's an entire separate conversation. But these are the sort of people that we're talking about that are very obsessed with the idea that since I have more than you, it means I'm designed to rule over you. And of course, obviously, you and I know that that's fucking insanity. They're just human beings. All of them are just humans, exactly like you and I. They just happen to be delusional, right? Like mad delusional. But speaking of delusions, we have some truly wonderful news here. This is out of RT, so, as always, grain of salt, but this is goddamn funny because I needed something to lighten the mood here a little bit. Quote, did she also celebrate Tupac's birthday? Incredulous internet sleuths take aim at Kamala Harris's childhood memories of Kwanzaa. This shit is funny. Social media users have accused U.S. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris of bending the truth. Oh, that's a real nice way to say that. After she claimed to have fond memories of celebrating Kwanzaa with her family. Harris released a video on Saturday in which she wished her supporters a happy Kwanzaa and said that her own family would be observing the holiday over Zoom. Quote, our Kwanzaa celebrations are one of my favorite childhood memories. The whole family would gather around across multiple generations and we'd tell stories and hold the candles, she reminisced, as a traditional 7-branched Kwanzaa candle holder was displayed on the table behind her. And you're like, wait, what?
Well,
First
I
celebrated
like-
1960. What's up?
I was going to say, I love it when the politicians give these little stories about their childhood. Like, I love hearing Biden talking about when he's, his old hometown in Scranton.
Oh yeah, corn pop. Yeah, talking about corn pop and stuff. Yeah.
And I don't know if you've heard this, because I can't. It'd be great if I could find the article again. But there's one guy talking about. There's a clip from a movie where some guy gives a politician gives a really fake speech and gives and says, it reminds me of my childhood when blah blah blah, and he goes, now who would use such a ridiculous thing? And then they play Joe Biden. He says the exact quote out of the movie. I can't.
Yeah,
It's. Have you seen that clip?
Yes, I have. Joe
What
Biden's
was
a
the
bad
actual? What was the? Can you remember the name of the movie or what that line was taken out of? Because it's so revealing. Because
It's not. It's a Wonderful Life, but it's something really famous like that.
Yeah, and
It's something super iconic.
Yeah, it was an iconic movie, but the funny thing was, this was a caricature of the politician you should never listen to, the fake politician. That was the speech taken from the movie. It's like, and here's Joe Biden taking that and using it. It's just,
Well,
it's
we've
unbelievable.
got the same thing here with Kamala Harris, where it's quote unquote, what is it? First celebrated in 1966. Kwanzaa is a Pan-African holiday that lasts from December 26th to January 1st. Its creator, African Studies professor Maulana Karenga, said the holiday was a way for people of African heritage to, quote, celebrate themselves and their history. A central figure in the Black Power movement in the U.S., Karenga himself was sentenced to 10 years in prison in 1971 after being found guilty of assaulting and torturing 2 women. What a nice guy. But it just kills me because Harris was born in 1964 and Kwanzaa was invented in 1966. So it's just, it's very, very sketchy and ridiculous, especially when you look at, as the article goes on, some of the pictures of Kamala Harris's childhood, where like all of these women in the pictures are in saris and everything. And it is a very obviously Indian sort of a household, which doesn't really seem like Kwanzaa is going to be a big thing there. And then better yet, they have a picture from later on in her childhood where it's them celebrating Christmas around a Christmas tree and stuff. But then, come on, man, we're celebrating Kwanzaa because it's politically correct to say we celebrated Kwanzaa. It's the same shit as Juneteenth. She literally acting like, yeah, I'm down with Juneteenth and all this stuff. Something that's like a fucking Texas holiday that they've tried to install around the entire country is like, oh no, man, it's the biggest deal and all black people celebrate it. And I'm like, I knew not one single fucking black person that celebrated this shit other than people that lived down south in like Texas and Louisiana and Oklahoma and shit. But apparently all black people were supposed to celebrate Juneteenth. And so thus it gets more ridiculous. People have stuff, what is it? Just as they're trolling her, right? Because it gets better and better. We have other holidays that Kamala Harris celebrated with her Tamil Brahmin grandmother in Montreal in the 1970s. Juneteenth, Ramadan, World AIDS Day, the Feast of St. George of Floyd, and Tupac Shakur's birthday, which was it? Harris has struggled in the past when trying to connect with African Americans. In a gaffe from September, the California politician declared Tupac Shakur to be, quote, the best rapper alive. Get it? The best rapper alive. Considering he's been dead for like 24 years. But hey, who'd want to tell Kamala, considering she has no fucking idea who Tupac Shakur is? She has no idea what any of this stuff is, because she's essentially Barack Obama too. It's what she is. Barack Obama was an internationalist that has more in common with people living in Southeast Asia right now, or rich white people living abroad, than he does the average African American. Whereas the exact same thing with Kamala Harris. And yet again, they will pander and pander and pander, and only truly the lowest IQ douchebags will believe this shit, but they're still out there. And I mean, we got a little bit more I'm finished here of
I just wanted to mention on that topic though that that's why a lot of people can't stand politicians, because of their fakeness. And that's why people can't stand people like Biden, because he's one of those career politicians, the fake type, that will say, well, we'll use these lines. He was exposed with that line. I did a quick check. I couldn't find which movie it was from, but and that's why people like Trump a bit more, because he is kind of he in fact, I don't like Trump when he uses the script. You know, when he does his script, his speech, and he sounds bored. He sounds bored of his own speech. Have you noticed that when he does the teleprompter and he goes, so, and he does it in a monotone voice. But when he talks normally, it's more interesting. He can be funny, and people like that. They like people just being themselves. They don't like all this bullshit.
Well, the thing to remember is that both of these guys, no matter how much they were fighting on the election here, and this is about to be because I'm about to read something out of Haaretz here. Always remember, Donald Trump and Joe Biden agree on Israel. They can disagree on a whole bunch of stuff, but they agree on Israel. And right here we have out of Haaretz from, what was it, published today. Rare 1986 document reveals Biden's views on Israel and Saudi Arabia. At a meeting with the, and unfortunately for us, I'm not subscribed to Haaretz, so we only get like the first paragraph of this, but at a meeting with Israel's ambassador in Washington, Joe Biden called U.S. aid to Israel, quote, the biggest bang for our buck, well, you know, blowing up Palestinian kids at least, and described Saudi Arabia as, quote, no more than a collection of 500 princes and their families. Truly, what a diplomat, what a truly just international, just godsend Joe Biden is, right? Because everything's going to be so different under Biden than it would.
It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be fantastic.
Doesn't it all feel like they agree on the exact same shit that matters most? And people will completely argue about all this trivial, inane shit, which isn't super trivial if you live here. But let's be real. Hundreds of millions of dollars, regardless of whether or not we're talking about Israel or 1.3 or 1.4 billion, I believe it was for Egypt's military. It doesn't matter which individual country we're talking about here. Everybody loves to focus on that fucking $10 million for Pakistani gender studies. But all of this foreign aid is considered more important to the politicians than you or I. Well, not than you, because you're not a U.S. citizen, Scott, but still.
I am if I want to be.
Well, hey, man,
anything I want.
As long as you paint yourself, like get blackface or brown face and then cross the border, you'll probably be fine. As long as you're coming in from Mexico, you'll be cool. If you're coming in from Canada, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Surely, if I can identify as a woman at a minute's notice, surely I can identify my nationality.
Gender identify as a pregnant Hispanic woman.
Yes, I am actually. Yes.
Give me checks in U.S. citizenship, please, and an Oregon State driver's license while we're at it.
Oh, and the other thing that Trump said, they were talking about the Hunter Biden investigation and the idea that he might be going to prison. And Trump said, I really don't want to see that. You know, it's like he was being all sympathetic. It's like, what?
Almost like he did the exact same thing he fucking did with Hillary Clinton, which I'm not trying to be rude to you, Scott, but I called that shit from the very beginning, man. And I had so many people try and tell me it wasn't the fucking case.
No, the arrests are coming, Seth, in the new year. The arrests are coming.
Eventually.
And you will be shocked.
The average QAnon person reminds me of Nelson Muntz from The Simpsons, whose thing is fucking, my dad's coming back. He just went to the store for some beer and some cigarettes. He's coming back, man. He's coming back. It's, well, like Christians with Jesus. He's coming back, man. Any day now. He's coming back. And it's fucking Donald Trump. The arrests are coming, guys. The arrests are coming. Just wait. Just wait a little bit more. It's going to be like fucking 2029. Donald Trump has been out of office for fucking ever at this point. They're like, come on, man. Just have some more faith, dude.
Another one, right? They literally, I think they say things to get views on their YouTube videos. Another one the other day said, he actually said this, but his followers are still with him. He said to his followers like last month, you're not going to believe this, guys. You are not going to believe this. But next week, I'm going to have a round table, and guess who's joining us?
Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is going to be joining us. Yes, I'm not lying. Donald Trump, this is no joke. And I thought, okay, well, I don't. This is obviously bollocks, but I'm just going to check
in anyways. Yeah.
And next week, nothing. Just ignores it, like nothing happened. And it's like all his followers just still there. It's like, what? You're just going to let him get away with that? You know?
Of course they will, dude, because they want to believe, Scott. That's exactly what we were talking about earlier. It's the optimism, because they want someone to believe in other than themselves. When no matter what, nobody other than you and I are the ones changing this. And I mean, it's anybody listening right now. You are the one that changes this in your own life. God damn it. You're not going to have some Christ-like figure, especially. I mean, granted, if you're a religious person, you believe in all that. It's great. Good on you, man. But you will not have a man come in and save you. You will not have some politician, some man or woman just in a fucking business suit or a pantsuit come out and go, I'm here to save all of you, because they're not. They never will be.
No,
They've always viewed
Q.
you as human chattel, dude. They've always viewed you as a source of revenue. That's all we are to these people. We are
Q, what
literally
about
faceless
Q's,
dollar
Steph?
signs. Yeah.
Q
Yeah,
will
okay.
save us. I've noticed. I told you before I quite liked the Q drops because they had little snippets of information. But
Yeah.
I'm gonna accuse Q of being a little bit of a coward now because I've noticed over the last month no Q drops. He's like, oh shit, none of this is gonna happen. I'm off. Packed his suitcase.
Scott,
Probably
to be
got a
honest,
little Q on the corner of his suitcase, and he's
I
buggered
knew
off.
Q was complete and total bullshit the second people pressed them on the Zionism question, and they kept saying Israel will be last. Israel will be last. Why would they be afraid of exposing the relationship between the United States or the United Kingdom and Israel? Why would that be? Unless a little birdie in Tel Aviv is the one tweeting all this stuff out. I wouldn't want people to think about it too hard, but why would Israel have to be the last? Russia can be put on blast. China can be put on blast. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, the United Kingdom, the United States, Mexico, China, Australia, Canada, anywhere, but not Israel. Just interesting. That told me everything I needed to know about QAnon. And the only people that still wanted it were people that wanted to believe. Part of me on some level does get the drive that people have of wanting to believe in something and wanting to believe that someone in the system gives a shit about you and cares. But I'm going to just have to burst the bubble even on people that love somebody like Ron Paul. Dude was a member of the Council on Foreign Relations. Yo, it's not going to change. It's not going to change now. It's not going to change ever. All the people that they give you that are there, the people that are pushed to you by the TV will never be the real opposition. I hate to have to quote the guy because I disagree with him on all sorts of stuff, but the old quote: "The revolution will not be televised."
Well, I hope there is a revolution.
I believe that's Gil Scott Heron too, man, and he's got some solid stuff. The only thing we got left here to cover is space stuff, and I have a feeling we are going to laugh like no other because some of this stuff is truly legendary.
We've probably only got about 5 minutes left,
okay,
but
okay.
we'll come to that in a minute. I wanted to say though that I do hope the QAnon are right about some things. I really would like them to be right. I mean, I actually would like Trump to get in for the next term, even if he's not the Messiah. He does have a little bit of resistance to the media and say some of the things you would want to say yourself. And the idea of Biden coming in now, at the time, a pretty dark time in humanity. I just like a couple of years of somebody just speaking back to the media. But Biden is literally gonna. I mean, I think he could potentially be dragging us into really dark times. Biden.
Well, yeah, literal World War III and stuff, man.
And even if Trump does get in, he won't be in for that long. But a couple of years would be nice. You know, I can go and find somewhere to live off grid. I think a lot of people.
That's the thing, Scott. That's the thing I will say. The part of me that has been fighting the accelerationism and the accelerationists this entire time is got to just say, that's the shit that's going to keep us stuck in this prison forever. Is that, come on, man, we just need that little bit to just give me some time to just do me and all that. You're not going to get away, man. And I'm trying to explain this to people right now that live in my state that are trying to move to places in the Midwest so they can get away from it all. And I'm like, dude, you don't get away from it. You fight it or it crushes you. And I'm not just saying that because it's easy for me to say. I'm literally putting myself at risk even fucking saying this to people. But that is it. It doesn't change till you change it. Nobody's going to just come randomly make you stop paying taxes and fucking save you from all this. You have to decide to break it. You have to decide to break the chains.
I don't know, but I kind of understand where they're coming from, because if I was in the States now, I'd be going to join one of those communities, one of those heavily armed communities. I'd feel a bit kind of like I can get away from it a bit here. And if the authorities coming, we can have a big shootout, you know. Whereas if I'm somewhere like Thailand where I am now, I'm on my own. There's no groups around me. I would love to be out in the hills.
Move out to the stateside, man. Move stateside. At least we got a lot of guns.
You don't know how difficult. You don't know how difficult it is for someone for England to go and try and live in the States.
I know. Unless you had a different kind of complexion, different sort of accent, and a different religious denomination. Yes, I get you, man.
You have to be from a developing country or something to get to the States. You can't come from England. Seriously, I didn't realize how difficult it is. Otherwise, I'd be there. Seriously.
And I think that's by design, where back in the day, when I say back in the day, I'm talking before the 1930s, immigration was the exact opposite. Coming here from Europe for somebody like yourself would have been easy as pie, whereas people from developing nations didn't get preferential immigration status. I mean, imagine that, right? But what is it? We have in the, what was it? Eretz Zeru says Anon was likely a Five Eyes war game. Yes, actually, I 100% I agree. I think it's very, very, very likely. And also, what was it? Moreover, the 10 to 20% in all key positions of power and influence. What is it? PCR test is returning 80 to 90% positive human, or percent positive human, which implies 10 to 20% non-human. Does it not? Potentially, yeah. Granted, I mean, the mainstream people, and this is not what I believe, but mainstream people believe that there's, like caveman genes, Neanderthal genes. Some people on the more Christian tip would say something along the lines of fallen angels and Nephilim.
I could go along with that. I honestly believe, rather than aliens, we might as well quickly talk about aliens, and then we can finish off with the space that you want to.
Yep.
Rather than aliens, I do think there could be kind of interdimensional beings from the spirit world, whatever you want to call it. I do believe there is an afterlife, and we go somewhere, and there are entities that exist, and they're the aliens. I don't think there are aliens from other planets. I think there's aliens from other dimensions, from the spirit world,
or from here, from our very physical own terrestrial plane. It's just because, I mean, at any moment people act like this is the craziest idea ever, but they could at any moment just fucking lie to us and tell us that what the shape of what you have for the world, that's the world, that's all you get. And in reality, these people know for a fact that there's more. The Admiral Byrd speech is a really big one right there, before they put him in the whack shack, when they put him in the loony bin. Right before that, he's talking about how there's more land. Like, what was it? A land the size of like North America beyond the South Pole type shit.
Yeah, and I saw that. Yeah, that's very interesting. But like a lot of these things, we can't investigate it, right? We can't investigate. So
exactly. And I have a feeling that unless individual people do, they're never going to know the answer. And yeah, but we got here. What is it? The space news. This will be a pretty great one.
Let's wind up with the space news. I still want to give one more call out. There is time if anyone wants to join us. I'm going to post the link now. There's just time for one more caller, or even a couple. If people want to do one last scramble, you can come and join us now. I would like to say this is our first call-in show. We haven't had many people who joined us yet, but.
Well, I'd love to do more like this, because honestly, having Luke there was awesome. That was really cool. Yeah.
Well, do it. We'll keep doing it. We'll call it a call-in show, and we'll keep doing it until there's more people that join us and feel comfortable about joining us.
Yeah, I really like this format. It's cool.
Yeah, it is cool. It's nice interacting with people. That's why we want you to come and join us in the room, and just even if it's a quick comment. So we'll keep doing
if you disagree with us, man. Anything. Just at this point, talking to other human beings is nice, man. Because for a lot of us. Yeah. You don't get to discuss any of this when you're out with other people in public and stuff, because most of these people, if you were to talk about half of what we're talking about, the eyes get glazed over. Night of the Living Dead shit. So,
and I'll tell you what, we could make it a either monthly or bi-monthly occasion on a Sunday at the same time, kind of thing. We won't make it fixed. We'll just say we may do one next month, the same times. The same setup, so that people can keep returning, and as people get more confidence, they can come and join us. Basically,
well, as long as it's bi-monthly and not trans-monthly, then we're fine.
Is that right? Bi-monthly would be like every 2 months, or is that wrong?
I think actually bi-monthly could be both, because it's like biannual or biennial. Because it's the same thing, because which is like twice a year, but it's also once every 2 years.
Okay, so what I meant was every 2 months.
Every 2 months. Okay, cool.
Every 1 or 2 months. Well, I'll advertise the call-in show, and I hope gradually it would be great to build up to like 5, 6, 7 guests per show. That would be great.
That'd be super cool. At the moment, anyway, what is it? CBS News with astronauts beam Christmas message of hope to Earth from aboard International Space Station. What is it? 7 astronauts are celebrating the holiday season aboard the International Space Station, but that isn't stopping them from beaming some holiday cheer back to Earth, right, Scotty? The Expedition 64 crew members are taking the day off, but NASA astronauts Mike Hopkins, Victor Glover, Shannon Walker, and Katie Rubins, and Japanese space program astronauts Soichi Noguchi still took some time to send a message of resilience back home during a particularly difficult holiday season. Resilience is also the name they gave to the SpaceX Crew Dragon capsule that launched the 4 astronauts to the space station last month. Because, you know, as techno-fascism progresses further, we have Elon Musk's Tesla and SpaceX being more and more in bed with the United States government and other governments around the world. Truly wonderful stuff. We selected the name to pay in tribute of people around the world and the teams that helped make our mission possible during a year that changed all of our lives, Hopkins said. Quote, we'd also like to remember everyone we've lost this year. Quote, there couldn't be a more fitting name to describe 2020. Yeah, resilience. More like shithole. Okay, but whatever. We've got that. And then we have CNN's The Year 2020 in Space Discoveries. You ready? It's getting good.
Mhm.
We've got Hubble's 30th anniversary, which isn't it amazing that Hubble just keeps getting all these perfect images and stuff 30 years later, man. 30 years in space.
Batteries in that thing, haven't they?
Yeah, the best batteries, Scott. Well, it's the same thing with Voyager.
Why don't they sell those for my laptop so I'd have to keep plugging this
or
thing.
changing the battery, considering I had to change the batteries on both of my gaming PC, which is what I'm on right now, and my freaking laptop I got from Jason and stuff for doing like recording music and all that. I've had to change the batteries on both of those. The old one that I got from Jason, I've had to change that fucker twice since I've got it. And granted, it's like 7 years old at this point, 6 years old at this point, but still, man, that's insane versus something like that. It's just supposedly going through space and fucking space radiation and all this stuff, but it's just perfect. That's because they have that NASA technology, not that icky, stupid poop technology we have in our stuff. I mean, we're just icky, simple humans. Ugh. What do we have? We have 20 years of humans in space on the ISS, if you want to believe that.
I think we should explain that we're not. I mean, especially you're not a great believer in what's out there in space. I'm kind of confused about what's going on out in space. Like,
for people that have been with us long enough, they've literally gotten to see my journey through all of this. So I'll say that a lot of them probably have actually gone on this exact same fucking journey with me, because I used to be into the space stuff really hard and we used to cover it on the show, and it became more and more laughable. And that's actually what got me to start looking up this space is fake, flat earth type stuff in the first place. Because how the fuck could you believe any of this stuff that these people are putting out when every day they just come up with some new ridiculous ass thing that there's no way for anybody to confirm? Like, what is it? The center of the universe smells like raspberries and root beer, or whatever the fuck it was, right? And the giant alcohol cloud of gas that could have alcohol gas that could get 20 quadrillion people drunk in a single sitting. And you're like, just.
This is what annoys me about science. It's like there was an article. I confess I haven't read the article, so I don't know what it's going to say, but I'm guessing. There was an article on the BBC today. It was titled something like "The Woman Who Knows Exactly When the Universe Will End," and I'm sure it's probably a scientist who's calculated when the universe is going to end. And for me, that's such ridiculous.
Actually, by my calculations, yeah,
it's such ridiculous. I mean, but people will call that, well, that's science. That's science. It's like, no, that's...
What are you, an anti-science?
Yeah, that's pseudoscience. And there's so much of pseudoscience in science.
Because it's a religion, Scott. Because science with a big S is a religion. That's why they use trust the science and stuff. It is religion for atheists. Dinosaurs, religion for atheists. Neanderthals, religion for atheists. Space, religion for atheists. Aliens, religion for atheists. Even most of the medicine stuff at this point in health has become religion for atheists. I mean, come on, Scott, are you questioning the official doctrine that in the year 2000X, we officially decided that, men can be women and women can be men and whatever else type of stuff? And anyone that questions that sounds hateful to me. Yeah, okay.
I mean, science has really lost its way. I mean, for me, the big sticking point was the black hole photo. That really caused some issues. I lost.
What about the finger in the ISS? The hole in the ISS where the astronaut stuck his finger through it until they could plug it later?
That's fine.
That's how vacuums work. That's how vacuums work. Dude. Submarine. that same thing were to happen on a submarine, there is no, I stuck my hole in it. There's just, you're the size of a suitcase now. Every single person in the ship, the size of the ship, all of it's the size of a briefcase, and all of you are occupying that same amount of space, because obviously you're all fucking dead at this point. There's not even like a half a second to react of, oh wait, let me stick my finger in the hole. Nope. And it's the same idea with their space stuff. Anything that, it's just dumb. It's just so dumb, but people, again, will buy it for the same level of, well, if we can continue here, we got some of the experiments launched on the ISS this year include genetically enhanced Mighty Mice and Nickelodeon slime. What's more, astronauts even tested baking cookies and growing their own salad ingredients in space. Astronauts learned more about how their bodies adapt to space. A suite of studies revealed some of the genetic changes astronauts have experienced due to long-term space flight. A crew had to handle a blood clot in space, and NASA astronaut Christina Koch set a new record for women. Wow. Commercial cargo vehicles and crew transport provided by SpaceX are allowing more experiments and astronauts to travel to and from the space station, which means even more scientific discovery. What do we have? We have the long-lost comet, the comet Neowise, which, again, the very name of it, Neowise, is kind of interesting here. That they have in March that was discovered. Observing the comet, the researchers learned that it's about 3 miles in diameter, the average size of a comet with long orbit, and just continuous, so on and so forth. Our peculiar neighbors, they have, the moon, Venus, Mars, and Jupiter, all made news with new discoveries on each planet that are intriguing researchers. New research revealed there may be more water on the moon than previously believed, including in its sunlit surface. The waters could be used as a resource during upcoming missions, which I'm sure the Tards will believe, considering all they have to do is set up a goddamn camera crew in Devon Island, Canada, and the average sheep will believe it. They just get fucking Matt Damon in a goddamn fakey spacesuit to go.
I thought there was an exhibition to Mars next year or next couple of years, isn't there?
Isn't there always one, Scott? This is one you can back me up on, because I know for a fucking fact you dealt with the same shit as a kid. Didn't they always tell you that in the future, and it's always a couple years off, there'll always be a new, there'll be colonies on the moon, colonies on Mars, there'll be a space flight where we'll fly in planes that go into the upper atmosphere and actually leave Earth's atmosphere and go in an orbit and then come back down at like super speed, and it's way faster than a normal plane, and everybody will be doing it. I remember that shit as a little kid. You're older than I am, man, and they told you the exact same shit as a kid.
Hang on a minute.
It still ain't fucking happening.
Well, one thing I do remember was when it was a big deal some years back when they found a molecule of what they thought might be water on the moon. Now, these days, they seem to be like, oh, we just found an ocean and there's a lake. It's like it used to be like if you found water, that signified life, and they just keep finding oceans and lakes everywhere now.
Interesting, huh? It's almost as though they're getting ready to paint a particular sort of a narrative and picture for certain people, because they want people to believe that, well, I mean, there's just obviously chances of life all over this dead, empty universe that we've created in your head through propaganda means.
Let's finish on that note. Where the question is, do you think they might try and pull off Project Bluebeam next year, where they do the fake alien invasion? And what would be the point of it?
You know, I didn't honestly think that they would keep going with it. I thought they were going with the virus route with everything, for real, because it's the one thing I could think of that not everybody believes in aliens. For real, not everybody believes in aliens. Even now, even before becoming a flat earther and all this stuff, I didn't actually believe in aliens or anything. I started to get further and further from that over time, because it became more and more laughable. The more I actually researched it of what would be required for this to be real, and so it felt like they used the virus thing. Because regardless of what religion you are, what political persuasion you are, what social background you come from, sexuality, whatever, everyone believes in health and science, don't you? I mean, so it feels like that's why they ran with that. But seeing what we discussed last time we were doing a show here is the Israeli intelligence chief, or former Israeli intelligence chief, talking about the Galactic Federation and all this nonsense, seeing the much ado buzz that created. Maybe these Maz maybe they're going to try it, man.
Well, you've
maybe
got the Guardians.
Try it next year.
You've got the Guardians of the Galaxy now, haven't you, in the States?
But yeah, Space Force. Yeah, don't forget we got our
No,
Guardians
they,
of the
they
Galaxy.
renamed them, didn't they? Didn't they rename them the other day? They renamed them the Guardians.
Wait,
Did you
for
not see
real?
that?
No, I
For
hadn't seen
real.
that. Here, let me look
Check
that
it
up. Let me
out.
look that up. There, let's see.
They gave them
Google.
their new costumes and they renamed them the Guardians. Type it in. I'm pretty
Yeah,
sure
Space
that's
Force
what I heard.
Guardians. Let me see.
Yeah.
Space Force Guardians. Let's see. Space Force personnel to be called Guardians. Yeah, this is from the 19th. Fucking. And their logo, which is literally the fucking Star Trek logo, of course. Jesus Christ. What is wrong with people, man?
That's a great comment to finish the show on. What is wrong with people? Let's finish on by saying we'll try to aim to do this at the end of next month, another one, unless something major happens before that, which is quite
well.
possible.
Yeah, and I get drone struck by the goddamn government to keep people's minds safe, right?
I personally think there's going to be some big things happening at the beginning and mid-January with the election stuff. I think.
Me too, man.
I think if war's going to kick off, it's going to be then, and it could be pretty. Well, who knows? Yeah.
I'm going to tell you the same thing I told Eric the other day, Dubay. We were talking about stuff, and I said, I'm with it till it's over, man. I'm in it to win it type stuff. I'm not giving up. I'm not going to just shut down my social media stuff and pretend and go hide somewhere and try and get away from all this. And Eric's on the same tip. It's until my lungs stop, man, until either they kill me or I just die, because I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give in. I'm not getting their goddamn vaccine. I'm not going to their fucking quarantine camp or their concentration camp. I'm not playing their game. I'm not doing their digital currency. I don't care if I have to live as a homeless person in the goddamn wilderness with not a single bit of internet, with not any of this shit. I will literally live for resistance on this tip, to be an example to other people of what to do until other people stand up, because I don't know what else to do, man. Because I can't save the fucking world. You can't save the world individually. It feels like it's just us doing this. And the more I've gotten to see with the lockdown, the more I've seen that we are the resistance. That goofy shit like Alex Jones and those guys say of, you are the resistance. Well, guess what? It is fucking true. We are the resistance. So make sure that you're not being led to the slaughter like some lamb or some goat following the Judas goat to go get slaughtered by somebody that is not your friend. Just always remember to think for yourself and stand up, man, because who wants to grow old in a world that's shit? Really?
Absolutely. That's a very good line to finish on. And I agree. I must say that I would love to be part of a community. We can be an online community, but it would feel a whole lot damn safer if we could physically gather. I mean, in some ways, I think you're lucky there in the States. I feel like there are communities there. Maybe they're forming in the UK as well, but kind of when you're in another country, it's kind of a bit more difficult, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, because all you see is their main official news sources, which are, of course, trying to downplay any sort of resistance.
Well, not only that, but you're living with a different, Thai people are very nice, but they're not really into that on a big scale, as far as I know. And then you've got the language barrier, so I don't even know,
Yeah, for sure. Well,
I might try next year to move. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm with it, and as I've said before, man, if you can figure out a way to get in the States, I think it's one of the best places to try and concentrate people that are like-minded, because we're in a country that's not an ethno-state. We're in a country that people can come across the entire freaking world and can come together around the basic ideas of humanitarianism, of the idea of freedom, not liberty, but freedom, the idea that your rights come from God, not a government regulatory body. Thing is, I'm not even a Christian, and I can understand and appreciate why the founding fathers had that particular idea of your rights come from God, not the government. And so I would like to see, hopefully, people rally around that. Again, that would be really nice. But anyways, thank you for everybody for listening. Luke that called in earlier, thank you big time, man. That was awesome. I would love to talk with you about anything else of cryptocurrency. If you ever want to get something together and present some points on cryptocurrency, especially to introduce people that might not be very familiar with cryptocurrency of what it actually is, how they like, why they would want to invest, what to keep an eye out for, that kind of stuff, because that's for real. That's how we spread the information. That's how we get people to not be sheep, because I understand that a lot of people, myself included at one point there, are very, very, or were very, very skeptical about things like cryptocurrency and are very technophobic for the most part. And it would help if we could not be, and those of us that aren't technophobic to help those of us that are be able to exist in this brave new world.
I'm more arachnophobic myself.
Just wait for the COVID spiders, Scott.
No, then I really will be going off grid. Anyway, thanks for joining us, Seth. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll be back next month or before if it all kicks off, as I put in the chat. And we hope a few more of you will join us on audio. Thanks, Luke. Maybe Luke will become a regular caller.
Cool.
Thanks again, everyone. Happy New Year if we don't see you before, and let's hope something good happens next year.
God bless.
Catch you later.
Peace.
Bye-bye.